Security cameras were designed to protect us. They watch over banks, homes, streets, and businesses, capturing every movement, every misstep. But sometimes, the cameras capture things that are not meant to be seen. Shadows that move on their own. Figures with no bodies. Hands that reach out from nowhere. These are not pranks or edits. These are real attacks caught on security footage. Incidents that defy explanation. Tonight, we step into the footage, the moments where the lens saw beyond the veil, and the living were confronted by the unseen. Welcome to the most 25 real ghost attacks caught on security cameras. In the industrial outskirts of Detroit, Michigan, a large warehouse complex has become the subject of chilling reports among security personnel and workers. The facility, a sprawling structure filled with stacks of pallets, metal shelving, and heavy equipment, appeared to be a normal part of the city's logistics network until an incident in 2017 changed the perception of those who worked there. The warehouse had long been known for odd occurrences: footsteps echoing in empty aisles, lights flickering without cause, and the sensation of being watched. But nothing prepared the staff for what would be captured on a security camera one evening. A flying, shadowy figure moving across the warehouse floor, knocking over objects in its path. The incident occurred during a routine overnight shift, when most of the building was empty. The security team monitored multiple cameras, scanning aisles and entrances for potential intruders. Around 2:30 a.m., one camera feed showed an anomaly: a dark, indistinct figure, seemingly suspended above the ground, propelling itself across the concrete floor. As it moved, boxes toppled, metal bins rattled, and a heavy pallet of supplies was pushed several feet across the warehouse. The figure did not resemble a person. There was no discernible form, no visible legs making contact with the floor, and it seemed to glide effortlessly over obstacles. The speed and force behind its movement were unlike anything a human intruder could achieve. Immediately, the security team began reviewing the footage in detail. They paused and rewound, hoping to identify the cause or reflection, a prank, or perhaps a malfunction with the camera. However, nothing explained the figure's movement. Further checks confirmed there had been no entry into the warehouse during that shift. Doors were locked, alarms remained untouched, and no footprints were found on the floor. The footage clearly showed the figure passing through aisles and scattering boxes in its path. While the cameras had captured the scene, no physical intruder had been apprehended, leaving the event entirely unexplained. After the incident, employees reported an uneasy shift in the warehouse environment. Workers claimed to feel sudden chills as they walked through certain aisles, the sensation of being followed, and glimpses of shadowy shapes at the periphery of vision. Many avoided working alone, and security shifts were doubled for several weeks. One guard, who had spent hours reviewing the footage of the flying figure, reported an even more disturbing consequence. The next morning, he awoke with deep scratches along his forearm, identical in pattern to marks visible in the footage. The scratches were long, deep, and appeared as though they had been inflicted by sharp claws. He had no recollection of receiving them in his sleep, and no other plausible explanation could be found. This experience instilled a profound fear in him, making it difficult to return to the warehouse. Investigators later examined the warehouse, looking for signs of tampering, structural issues, or natural explanations. The building was old, with creaky flooring, exposed beams, and stacks of stored materials, but nothing structurally could explain the events captured on camera. Paranormal experts were called in to review the footage, noting that the figure's movement, its ability to manipulate physical objects, and the subsequent injuries to the security guard all pointed to an active, potentially malevolent entity. Some suggested that the warehouse could be a site of residual energy, a place where previous industrial accidents, human stress, or long periods of labor had imprinted on the environment. Others speculated that it might be a poltergeist, a spirit capable of interacting physically with the material world, capable of moving objects, and even causing injury. The employees' accounts continued to reinforce the unsettling nature of the warehouse. Several reported hearing heavy footsteps on metal grates when no one was present, objects inexplicably falling from high shelves, and occasional sounds resembling guttural breathing echoing through the empty halls. Some even describe feeling a sudden rush of air, as if something passed through them or over their shoulders. These events occurred mostly in the same general area where the flying figure had been seen, suggesting a concentrated point of activity. Security cameras, though vigilant, sometimes failed to capture these occurrences, further heightening the sense that whatever was present had an almost sentient awareness of the building and its surveillance. Despite increased security measures, no natural explanation emerged. Warehouse management considered leaving certain areas off limits, and some employees requested transfers to other facilities. Others, however, were fascinated and attempted to monitor the areas themselves, capturing additional footage of shadows darting across aisles or lights flickering in patterns. Paranormal investigators noted that these incidents often intensified at night, during periods of silence, and when the warehouse was mostly empty, aligning with typical poltergeist activity observed in other locations. The story of the flying figure at the Detroit warehouse quickly spread among the local community, becoming a cautionary tale for security personnel and industrial workers. Those who witnessed the footage or visited the warehouse described an atmosphere of heightened tension and a lingering sense that the building itself is inhabited by an unseen presence. The combination of visual evidence, physical interaction with objects, and unexplained injuries has solidified the site's reputation as a hotspot for paranormal activity. Today, the warehouse remains operational, but the story of the flying figure is remembered among employees and investigators alike. Shadowy forms, knocked-over boxers, and sudden injuries continue to serve as reminders that some entities may not be bound by the natural laws that govern the physical world. The 2017 incident stands as a chilling example of a place where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs, leaving those who encounter it with questions, fear, and an indelible sense of the unexplained. The warehouse in Detroit is more than a place of work. It is a location where the past, the unseen, and the inexplicable converge, creating an environment that remains haunted by a flying figure capable of moving through the world in ways that defy explanation. In Houston, Texas, a local supermarket gained unexpected notoriety when an incident captured on a nighttime security camera left employees and investigators baffled. The store, a sprawling retail space with wide aisles and neatly stacked shelves, was otherwise an ordinary neighborhood supermarket. Staff routinely performed overnight stocking and cleaning, and security personnel monitored the premises to ensure safety and prevent theft. On one seemingly uneventful evening, however, the store's CCTV system recorded an event that defied all explanation: a figure pushing a shopping cart down the aisles, only to vanish into thin air. The footage begins like any other late-night recording. The aisles are dimly lit, with the soft hum of refrigeration units filling the background. Around 2:15 a.m., a blurred figure appears near the entrance of one of the central aisles. At first, it appears to be an ordinary customer, pushing a cart in a typical shopping motion. The figure's features are indistinct, shrouded in a haze that gives it a ghostly appearance. As the camera follows the figure, employees reviewing the footage notice something extraordinary. The shopper does not adhere to the physical layout of the store. As the cart moves forward, the figure passes straight through a row of shelves, stocked with cereal boxes, emerging on the other side as though the shelving were invisible. The effect intensifies a few seconds later. As the figure continues toward the checkout area, it moves directly through the wall, separating the aisles from the storage room, leaving no evidence of contact. Even the shopping cart, a heavy metal frame normally restricted by gravity and friction, glides effortlessly with the figure. Perhaps most unsettling is the vapor-like mist that appears to radiate from the figure as it passes through obstacles. This mist spreads across the aisle for several seconds, shimmering in the CCTV's infrared lighting and leaving a faint, lingering trace before dissipating entirely. Employees who viewed the footage reported a mix of fear and disbelief. Many returned to the store during daylight hours to inspect the area, looking for hidden passages, reflective surfaces, or technical glitches in the cameras. The layout of the store proved conventional, and no structural anomalies could explain the figure's ability to pass through walls and shelves. Security experts examined the footage frame by frame, attempting to identify a digital error, video manipulation, or lighting illusion. The blur and vapor mist persisted in every playback, and no evidence of tampering was ever discovered. Several staff members recounted physical sensations experienced while reviewing the footage. One night security guard claimed he felt a sudden chill sweep through the store as he watched the figure move, accompanied by an eerie sensation of being observed. Another employee described the hairs on her arms standing on end, as if the figure's presence was somehow extending beyond the screen. These accounts suggested that the event was not merely a visual anomaly but had an inexplicable, almost tangible effect on those who observed it. The store management considered the possibility of a prank or someone attempting to stage a viral video. However, the timing, the weightless movement of the cart, and the appearance of the vapor-like mist convinced them that something more unusual had occurred. No intruder or person matching the figure was ever identified, despite cross-checking employee logs, visitor records, and neighborhood surveillance footage. The mystery deepened as the footage was shared with local paranormal investigators, who noted that the figure displayed characteristics consistent with what is sometimes described as a poltergeist or residual apparition. Its ability to move through solid objects, the cold mist emanating from its form, and the distorted, blurred appearance all aligned with other documented cases of supernatural activity. Some investigators proposed that the supermarket might have been built on land with a history of unexplained phenomena or strong residual energy. Others suggested that the figure could be a manifestation of a tragic event long forgotten, a spirit replaying emotion in a repetitive or symbolic way. While the store's regular patrons remained unaware of the strange overnight occurrences, employees who worked late-night shifts reported a lingering unease in the aisles where the figure had appeared. Some refused to work alone, citing the feeling that something unseen could pass through walls and watch them from the shadows. Beyond the immediate footage, subsequent security checks revealed other anomalies. Lights in certain aisles flickered intermittently without electrical cause, and some shelves were found slightly disarranged despite being restocked the previous day. Cold spots were also reported, localized areas where the temperature would suddenly drop several degrees without any HVAC explanation, combined with the video of the vanished shopper. These phenomena created a growing reputation for the supermarket as a site of unexplained activity. The story of the vanished shopper in Houston spread through local news outlets, online forums, and social media. Paranormal enthusiasts and investigators visited the store, hoping to catch additional glimpses of the figure or gather evidence of the supernatural. While no further vanishing events were captured with the same clarity, many visitors reported fleeting shadows, unexplained noises, and a lingering sensation of being observed, reinforcing the eerie impression created by the original footage. Today, the supermarket continues to operate, but the legend of the vanishing shopper endures among employees and visitors alike. The footage remains a point of fascination, a chilling reminder that the ordinary can conceal the extraordinary. The combination of a human-like figure, its inexplicable movement through walls and shelves, the vapor-like mist, and the unsettling physical sensations experienced by observers all contribute to a haunting narrative that blurs the line between reality and the unknown. The Houston supermarket and its vanished shopper stand as a testament to the mysterious and unpredictable nature of the paranormal. The events captured on that 2017 security camera offer a glimpse into a world where physical laws appear suspended, and unseen forces can manipulate the environment in ways that defy explanation. For those who encounter the footage or visit the store, the memory of a blurred figure moving effortlessly through the aisles serves as a lasting reminder that some presences cannot be seen, measured, or contained in, that the ordinary world can sometimes conceal the extraordinary in the most unsettling of ways. In Tampa, Florida, a 24-hour bank branch became the focus of a chilling incident that left both employees and law enforcement perplexed. The modern facility, open around the clock with multiple ATMs, teller windows, and a secured vault, was designed for routine operations and safety. Late one night, however, The bank's CCTV cameras captured an event that defied explanation: a disembodied hand punching through an ATM booth, shattering glass, and disappearing without any visible perpetrator. The incident occurred shortly after midnight. Security cameras monitoring the lobby recorded a sudden movement near one of the automated telemachines. Initially, nothing appeared unusual, but within seconds, a hand emerged seemingly from thin air, striking the glass of the ATM with such force that shards scattered across the floor. The impact was loud enough to trigger the bank's internal alarms, immediately alerting the overnight security team. The footage shows no figure behind the hand, no arm attached, and no one entering the frame. The hand appears as if it materialized out of nothing, delivered a precise, violent punch, and then vanished just as quickly, leaving the booth shattered and the surrounding area eerily still. Security personnel arrived within minutes, inspecting the damage while reviewing the CCTV footage. They searched the lobby, teller areas, and adjacent rooms, finding no sign of any intruder. Doors were secured, and the alarm system logs indicated no unauthorized entry. Even the vault, a heavily reinforced and locked area, showed no signs of tampering, and the logs confirmed it had remained closed during the incident. The footage was sent to the police for review, who similarly found no explanation. No prints, footprints, or fingerprints were found in or around the ATM, and there were no witnesses to the event other than the video itself. Employees who returned to the branch the following morning described an unsettling atmosphere. Many reported hearing faint whispers in the otherwise empty building, soft exhalations that seemed to come from the direction of the ATM area. A few claimed they could hear breathing close to their ears, though no one was present. Some staff members experienced sudden cold spots near the shattered booth, a sharp contrast to the normally climate-controlled lobby. The combination of these sensations with the inexplicable CCTV footage contributed to a pervasive sense of unease that lingered long after the initial event. Paranormal investigators who examined the footage noted several characteristics consistent with unexplained phenomena. The disembodied hand seemed to operate independently of a physical body, yet interacted with the environment, shattering glass with measurable force. This type of interaction, where an unseen entity exerts physical influence, aligns with documented cases of poltergeist activity, although few cases are captured so clearly on camera. The vapor-like movement preceding the hand strike, along with the sudden silence that followed, suggested the presence of a force not constrained by normal human limitations. Investigators theorized that the bank's history built on a site that may have hosted previous businesses or intense human activity could have contributed to residual energy imprinted in the location. Employees continued to report strange experiences in the weeks following the event. Some claimed that their workstations occasionally seemed to be disturbed without explanation. Papers shifted, chairs moved slightly, and computer screens flickered. Others described the sensation of being watched when walking past the ATM area. Many of these occurrences were reported during late-night shifts when the bank was empty, and staff often avoided working alone. Some guards described feeling a weight on their shoulders, like an invisible presence leaning over them, while others felt sudden, sharp drops in temperature near the lobby and ATM booths. The bank management considered installing additional surveillance, motion sensors, and reinforced barriers to prevent future incidents, but no further attacks were recorded. Yet, the memory of the attacking hand persisted in both the footage and the minds of those who witnessed it. Paranormal researchers continued to include the branch in their studies, documenting the unusual combination of visual, auditory, and physical phenomena. Some investigators speculated that the hand was a manifestation of unresolved energy, possibly anger, fear, or stress left behind by previous occupants of the building or the land itself. Others suggested a poltergeist or spirit with the ability to interact selectively with physical objects, a rare and aggressive type of haunting. Local news coverage of the incident further amplified the bank's notoriety. The footage circulated online, generating discussions among paranormal enthusiasts, skeptics, and residents. Analysts debated whether the hand could have been a special effect, a glitch in the CCTV, or even a prank. However, the combination of video evidence, the physical damage to the ATM, and subsequent employee experiences made natural or staged explanations increasingly unlikely. Those who witnessed the footage in person often described a visceral reaction, a mixture of disbelief and fear, as if the hand had crossed the boundary between the unseen and the tangible. Today, the Tampa Bank remains operational, but the story of the attacking hand has become an enduring legend among employees, security personnel, and local residents. The shattered ATM stands as a reminder that some forces may operate outside human comprehension. The whispers, cold spots, and feelings of unseen observation persist as a subtle but constant presence, reminding staff and visitors alike that the ordinary world can sometimes intersect with the unexplained. The Tampa Bank incident is a vivid example of how modern technology can capture phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality. A hand, detached from any body, moving with deliberate force and leaving physical evidence, confronts both employees and investigators with the unsettling notion that the supernatural can manifest in unexpected ways. For those who have seen the footage or worked in the building, the attacking hand remains a chilling testament to the presence of forces unseen, capable of intruding into even the most familiar spaces without warning, explanation, or mercy. In Los Angeles, California, a parking garage in the downtown district became the site of a terrifying and unexplained event in 2019. The multi-level structure, typically bustling with vehicles and commuters during the day, had grown quiet by late evening. Security cameras monitored each floor, ensuring safety and documenting activity for both law enforcement and management. One night, a surveillance camera captured an incident that left employees, investigators, and the victim himself baffled. A shadowy force physically attacking a man without any visible assailant present. The footage begins around 11:45 p.m. when a man is seen walking toward his parked vehicle on the third floor. The garage is empty, aside from his car and a few others scattered nearby. He walks briskly, carrying his briefcase, and appears relaxed, unaware of the danger that is about to unfold. Suddenly, a dark, indistinct shadow emerges from the periphery of the camera's view. The shape seems to detach from the wall, lunging with deliberate force at the man. Before he can react, he is pushed violently into the concrete wall beside him. The impact is strong enough to knock him to the ground, and the shadow retreats almost instantaneously, as though aware of the camera watching. When security personnel arrived, minutes later, after receiving an alarm triggered by the man's fall, they found him conscious but shaken, with visible bruises forming along his shoulders and scratches along his arms and back. He insisted that no one had been near him, and the empty garage confirmed his account. Surveillance footage was immediately reviewed in detail, revealing the horrifying sequence of events. The shadow appeared solid enough to exert physical force, yet no one could be seen controlling it. There were no reflections, no signs of a person hiding in the nearby vehicles, and the entry and exit points to the garage remained unbreached. The shadow acted independently, attacking, retreating, and vanishing without explanation. The next day, the man sought medical attention for his injuries. Doctors documented multiple bruises, abrasions, and minor scratches that corresponded precisely to the movements seen in the footage. There were no other witnesses, and forensic analysis of the area revealed no fingerprints or footprints other than those belonging to the victim. Even the concrete wall bore no marks, aside from the faint scuff left by the impact of the man's body. The combination of physical injury and video evidence made the incident particularly alarming, as it suggested that an unseen force was capable of interacting with the physical world. Security personnel and building management conducted a thorough review of the garage's systems. Motion sensors, entry logs, and camera feeds were checked for anomalies or malfunctions. All systems were found to be functioning normally, and there was no indication of tampering or technical glitches. The cameras clearly documented the event, yet no human perpetrator could be identified entering or exiting the garage before, during, or after the attack. The sequence was recorded in real time, ruling out video manipulation or playback artifacts. Local paranormal investigators were contacted to examine both the footage and the incident site. Experts noted that the shadow's movement, apparent awareness of the camera, and ability to apply physical force aligned with cases often described as poltergeist activity or aggressive residual haunting. Such entities are reported to interact with the material world, sometimes leaving injuries or moving objects, though they rarely manifest in such a clearly visible and recorded form. The investigators speculated that the garage, built on land with a long history of construction, demolition, and heavy human activity, could harbor lingering energy imprints. These residual energies might occasionally manifest in ways that interact directly with living individuals. Employees who worked late-night shifts after the incident reported feeling uneasy in the garage. Many described sudden chills, a sensation of being watched, and fleeting shadows along the edges of vision. Some refused to park on the affected floor, preferring lower or upper levels where no strange activity had been recorded. Others claimed to hear whispers or faint exhalations echoing through the concrete corridors, especially in the same area where the shadow had attacked. While no further physical attacks were recorded, these subtle phenomena reinforced the idea that the garage was a site of concentrated, unexplained energy. The incident gained local media attention and spread quickly through online forums dedicated to paranormal activity. Skeptics suggested it could be a trick of lighting or a reflection, but the combination of visible physical force, the victim's injuries, and the lack of any entry or exit for a perpetrator made conventional explanations insufficient. Even investigators who approached the footage with a scientific mindset acknowledged the difficulty of rationalizing what occurred. The idea that a shadow, entirely independent of a human form, could appear, attack, and disappear remained a chilling and unresolved possibility. Today, the Los Angeles packing garage continues to operate, but the story of the attacking shadow has left a lasting impression on staff, patrons, and investigators. The footage remains a key piece of evidence, a haunting visual record of a moment when the ordinary world collided with the inexplicable. Employees often report lingering feelings of unease, especially near the third-floor area where the attack occurred. Some speculate that the shadow was a manifestation of intense stress, fear, or energy tied to the building's past, while others accept it as a rare and malevolent entity capable of targeting individuals without warning. The incident of the shadow that pushed in the Los Angeles packing garage serves as a stark reminder that the unseen can interact with the physical world in ways that defy logic and expectation. A simple trip to one's car became a terrifying encounter with a force beyond comprehension, leaving behind bruises, scratches, and lingering fear. For those who have seen the footage, walked at the garage, or heard the story, the shadow is more than a ghostly shape. It is an active presence, unseen, yet tangible, capable of asserting itself in our world with sudden and alarming force. In the heart of New York City, a historic hotel became the site of an unnerving and unexplained phenomenon, captured by its overnight surveillance system. Known for its elegant marble floors, ornate decor, and high-profile clientele, the hotel prided itself on security and hospitality. Yet one night in 2020, the CCTV cameras recorded an event that left staff and investigators struggling to understand what had transpired. A figure moving across the lobby as if defying gravity, leaving behind both physical destruction and a lingering sense of dread. The footage begins shortly after 2:00 a.m., a time when the lobby is typically empty, aside from security personnel making their rounds. The camera pans across the polished marble floor, showing the familiar arrangement of seating areas, ornate vases on pedestals, and concierge desks. Suddenly, a figure appears in the center of the frame. At first, it seems to glide effortlessly above the floor, moving smoothly and silently as if suspended by an invisible force. The figure is human-like in shape, but lacks any clear distinguishing features, appearing as a dark, translucent silhouette against the glow of the lobby lights. As the floating figure moves across the room, it collides with a large vase positioned on a pedestal. The vase topples over and crashes to the marble floor, shattering into hundreds of pieces. The sound of the breaking porcelain echoes unnaturally through the empty lobby, amplifying the eerie atmosphere. Security staff arrive within minutes, but the lobby is empty. No one has entered or exited the building through any of the monitored doors during the time of the incident. The shattered vase lies on the floor, evidence that the figure had made physical contact with the environment, yet no witness can account for its presence. Guests staying in rooms near the lobby reported disturbing sensations that same night. Several recounted feeling cold hands resting lightly on their shoulders as they slept, though they were alone in their beds. Others described waking suddenly with the impression of someone standing at the foot of their bed, only to find empty space and an inexplicable chill lingering in the air. Some reported the sensation of being watched, a feeling that intensified when they looked toward the room's entrance. These experiences, combined with the surveillance footage, created a mounting sense of unease throughout the hotel staff and guests alike. Management conducted a thorough review of the hotel's security systems to rule out tampering, technical glitches, or unauthorized entry. All access logs confirmed that no one had entered the building during the time in question. Motion sensors detected no human presence in the lobby prior to the incident, and the surveillance cameras showed no anomalies in operation. The footage was clear, with no evidence of editing or interference, showing the figure floating naturally through the air, as if it were immune to gravity. Paranormal investigators were brought in to examine both the footage and the scene. They noted several unusual aspects of the phenomenon: the figure's ability to float above the floor, its interaction with the vase, and its apparent awareness of the lobby's layout. These traits align with documented cases of poltergeist activity or intelligent residual manifestations, entities reported to interact with the physical world while remaining unseen by conventional observation. Investigators also measured sudden drops in temperature in the lobby area, along with brief electromagnetic fluctuations, suggesting that the location contained concentrated and unstable energy at the time of the incident. The shattered vase, a tangible consequence of the figure's movement, became a symbol of the event's reality. Hotel staff recounted feeling an immediate chill upon discovering the broken pieces, and some reported hearing faint whispers that seemed to come from the direction of the fallen vase. One security officer claimed that, while cleaning the area later, he briefly saw the same dark silhouette hovering near the pedestal before vanishing. These repeated, corroborated experiences suggested that the figure was not a one-time anomaly, but a persistent presence, capable of interacting with both objects and humans. In the weeks following the incident, staff reported additional strange occurrences in the lobby and adjacent hallways. Chairs were occasionally found, moved slightly out of place, paintings tilted despite no drafts or disturbances, and lights flickered intermittently with no electrical explanation. Guests continued to report sensations of cold touches, unseen pressure on their shoulders, and fleeting shadows at the edge of their vision. Although no further levitation incidents were recorded, the sense that the floating figure might still be present created an undercurrent of tension throughout the hotel. Local media picked up the story after hotel management shared the footage, sparking discussions about the unexplained event. Skeptics suggested illusions caused by reflections, camera distortions, or fatigue-induced hallucinations. But the combination of physical evidence, the clarity of the surveillance footage, and multiple independent guest reports made these explanations difficult to reconcile. The incident became a case study for paranormal researchers, demonstrating how an unseen presence could interact directly with the material world, leaving both visual and tangible traces. Today, the hotel continues to operate, yet the story of the floating figure remains a haunting part of its history. Staff working night shifts still report feeling watched, and some avoid certain areas of the lobby after dark. Guests who have experienced unexplained touches or cold spots often recount the tale of the levitating silhouette, adding to the legend of the hotel's spectral inhabitant. The incident remains a powerful reminder that the ordinary world can conceal forces beyond comprehension, forces capable of moving through space, interacting with objects, and leaving an indelible impression on those who encounter them. The floating figure in the New York City hotel lobby stands as a chilling example of the unknown intruding into the everyday. A single night, a camera, and a shattered vase became the evidence of a presence that defied explanation. For anyone who watches the footage or walks the marble floors after dark, the memory of that dark levitating shape is a constant, unsettling reminder that some forces unseen and unpredictable are capable of asserting themselves in ways both tangible and terrifying. In the heart of Chicago, Illinois, a small convenience store became the site of a truly unnerving event during a late-night shift in 2018. The store, normally quiet after midnight, except for the occasional customer or delivery truck, was under the watch of a series of surveillance cameras designed to monitor activity and ensure the safety of both employees and merchandise. One night, those cameras captured a phenomenon that left staff, management, and investigators baffled. A screaming apparition that seemed to defy the laws of physics and reality. The incident occurred shortly after 1 a.m., when a lone employee was stocking shelves in the center aisle. The security footage shows the employee moving methodically, arranging items on racks and checking inventory. Suddenly, a figure begins to materialize near a display of canned goods. At first, it appears as a faint shimmer in the air, barely distinguishable from the surrounding lighting. Within seconds, it coalesces into a humanoid form, indistinct but clearly visible on the camera feed. The figure emits a silent scream, its mouth open in a way that suggests terror or rage. Though no sound is recorded, a faint, eerie glow seems to emanate from the entity, casting strange reflections across the aisle. As the apparition solidifies, objects around it begin to react violently. Cans topple from shelves, bottles roll across the floor, and small boxes are thrown as if an invisible hand is hurling them. The employee freezes in the footage, eyes wide, unable to move for several seconds as the entity seems to grow in intensity. The glowing figure then appears to shrink, its outline becoming increasingly faint before vanishing entirely, leaving the store silent once again. The sudden quiet is punctuated by a loud thud as a rack of snacks collapses near the back door, startling the employee into action. After the event, the employee reported hearing footsteps running toward the back exit, even though the store had been locked and secured for the night. Doors, cash registers, and windows were inspected, revealing no signs of tampering. The store's alarm system logs confirmed that no one had entered or exited during the incident, and motion sensors did not detect any human presence. The combination of the visual footage, the physical disturbances, and the auditory sensations made it clear that something extraordinary had occurred. Management immediately reviewed the surveillance tapes, finding the footage both disturbing and inexplicable. The figure's appearance, the objects moving independently, and the shrinking glow all defied conventional explanations. Paranormal investigators were consulted to analyze the footage and the environment. Experts noted that the entity exhibited traits consistent with residual or intelligent haunting. Residual hauntings, they explained, often replay emotional or violent moments from the past, while intelligent spirits appear to interact with the physical world consciously. In this case, the flying objects and the employee's sensations of movement suggested an intelligence capable of exerting physical force. Further investigation of the store's history revealed that the building had once been the site of an older establishment that had closed under mysterious circumstances. Former owners and employees reported that the previous business had been plagued by break-in fires and strange occurrences during late hours. While no one could definitively link the apparition to these past events, paranormal theorists suggested that intense emotional energy might have lingered in the space, eventually manifesting in ways that could interact with the living. In the days following the incident, employees continued to report strange sensations in the store. Some claimed to feel cold drafts in areas where the HVAC system functioned normally. Others reported sudden feelings of being watched while walking through the aisles alone. A few staff members described hearing soft whispers or indistinct murmurs emanating from the shelves, particularly near the section where the apparition had appeared. These occurrences were sporadic but consistent enough to unsettle both new and veteran employees. The physical evidence of the event, the displaced objects, the collapsed snack rack, and the visual footage remained a point of fascination for local media and paranormal enthusiasts. The footage circulated online, sparking discussions about the nature of the apparition and the possibility of poltergeist activity. Skeptics suggested lighting anomalies or video artifacts, but the combination of moving objects, employee testimony, and subsequent sensations in the store made conventional explanations inadequate. The figure's presence, captured so clearly on camera, provided a rare and compelling case study of a ghostly entity interacting directly with its environment. Security protocols were updated after the incident, with management requiring 2 employees to work overnight shifts and increasing monitoring of all cameras. Despite these measures, some employees admitted feeling anxious in the same aisle where the apparition appeared. Many avoided walking through it alone, particularly in the hours leading up to dawn. The psychological impact of the event was significant. Even those who had not witnessed the apparition firsthand reported heightened tension and unease while working at night. Today, the Chicago convenience store remains operational, but the story of the screaming apparition continues to circulate among employees and visitors. The footage remains a point of reference for paranormal researchers studying poltergeist phenomena, residual hauntings, and intelligent apparitions capable of physical interaction. For those who have experienced the strange events in person, the memory of the glowing figure, the flying objects, and the silent scream remains vivid. A chilling reminder that some forces may linger long after the human occupants have gone. The 2018 event at the convenience store stands as a striking example of how the unseen can intrude into daily life, leaving both evidence and lingering fear. A lone figure, captured on surveillance, silently screaming while manipulating objects in the physical world, challenged the boundaries between the ordinary and the paranormal. For those who were present, and for the many who have since studied the footage, the apparition serves as a haunting testament to the unknown, capable of manifesting in unexpected and terrifying ways within the most mundane of settings. In a quiet suburban neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, a seemingly ordinary family home became the site of a terrifying and unexplained event captured on a home security camera. Known for its peaceful streets and calm evenings, the house suddenly transformed into a location of paranormal activity that left the homeowners shaken and investigators intrigued. The incident, which occurred in 2019, involved a violent display of movement from a chandelier and the appearance of a transparent figure interacting with it, creating both physical evidence and lingering fear. The event was recorded during the early hours of the morning, around 2:30 a.m., when the house was silent except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator. The security camera positioned in the living room captured a sudden and alarming movement. The large chandelier suspended from the ceiling began swinging violently back and forth. What made the scene especially unnerving was that no windows were open, no doors had been disturbed, and there was no detectable airflow or vibration that could account for the movement. The chandelier, a heavy fixture that required significant force to shift, swung with a strength that seemed impossible under normal circumstances. As the camera footage continues, a transparent figure emerges from the ceiling area, seemingly holding on to the chain of the chandelier. The figure is vaguely human in shape, but lacks distinct features, appearing as a blurry, ghostly silhouette. With deliberate effort, it pulls down on the chain repeatedly, causing the chandelier to sway even more violently. The figure's movements appear purposeful, almost aggressive, as if it is demonstrating its strength and control over the object. The sight of the transparent presence, manipulating a heavy chandelier, is both surreal and frightening, leaving little doubt that something beyond the physical world was at play. By the time the homeowners were awakened by the loud clanging of metal against crystal, the chandelier had already begun to slow. The house was empty, aside from the family, and no visible intruder could be found. However, the aftermath of the incident provided tangible evidence of the encounter. The family discovered minor damage to the surrounding furniture and marks on the floor where the chandelier had nearly struck a nearby table. More unsettling were the bruises appearing on the arms of one of the family members, seemingly without explanation. The bruises were tender and patterned in a way that suggested the force of gripping or impact, aligning with the movements of the chandelier captured on camera. In addition to the physical evidence, the family reported auditory phenomena that accompanied the visual encounter. Footsteps echoed through the hallway, despite no one being present, and soft creaking noises seemed to follow the residents as they moved from room to room. Doors that had been securely closed were later found slightly ajar, and small household items were displaced in ways that could not be easily explained. These experiences compounded the sense of unease and suggested that the transparent figure was not only capable of interacting with objects, but might also have been moving freely throughout the home. The security camera footage was reviewed extensively by local paranormal investigators, who noted several remarkable aspects. The figure's transparency and the absence of any identifiable physical source suggested a spectral presence, while the ability to apply sufficient force to manipulate a heavy chandelier indicated an unusual level of power and intent. Investigators measured cold spots in the living room where the chandelier had swung most violently, with thermographic readings confirming sudden drops in temperature. Electromagnetic field monitors detected brief but intense spikes, a common indicator of paranormal activity in similar cases. Further investigation into the home's history revealed no recent deaths or violent events on the property, but the neighborhood itself had been the site of construction accidents and older homes being demolished decades prior. Paranormal experts suggested that residual energy from past events, perhaps amplified by the home's layout and materials, could have coalesced into an intelligent presence capable of interacting with the living environment. The figure's targeted focus on the chandelier, combined with the physical effects on the family, indicated more than a random haunting. It suggested a conscious and potentially malevolent intelligence. In the days following the incident, the family reported continued disturbances. Footsteps in the hallway persisted, and the sensation of being watched became a constant, particularly at night. Some rooms felt colder than others, with chills descending without cause. While the chandelier did not swing again, minor incidents, doors closing, lights flickering, and items subtly moved, continued, reinforcing the impression that the entity remained in the house. The psychological impact on the family was significant, with some members hesitant to sleep alone or remain in the living room after dark. Media attention and local discussion of the incident spread quickly after the footage was shared with investigators, sparking debates about the reality of the event and possible explanations. Skeptics proposed technical anomalies, drafts, or human error, but the combination of recorded visual evidence, physical marks on the family members' arms, and continued environmental disturbances made such rationalizations insufficient. The chandelier incident remains a particularly compelling example of how a visible and forceful apparition can manifest within a private home, leaving both psychological and physical evidence in its wake. Today, the suburban home in Atlanta continues to be inhabited, though the family has taken precautions, including additional security cameras and protective measures suggested by paranormal experts. The story of the swinging chandelier and the transparent figure has become part of local lore, a chilling reminder that even the most ordinary and secure spaces can harbor forces beyond comprehension. For anyone who views the footage or walks through the living room after dark, the memory of a ghostly hand pulling down a chandelier and the lingering bruises it left behind remains an unsettling testament to the unknown forces that may reside within our homes. The incident at the Atlanta home demonstrates that paranormal activity can be sudden, violent, and tangible. A single night, a home security camera, and a swinging chandelier became the evidence of an invisible presence capable of interacting with the physical world, leaving marks, bruises, and fear. The memory of that transparent figure continues to haunt both the family and those who witnessed the footage. A stark reminder that some unseen entities are capable of asserting their presence in ways that are impossible to ignore. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, an abandoned factory became the focus of intense paranormal speculation after a 2019 night shift security camera captured a series of inexplicable events. The building, once a bustling industrial site, had been shuttered for years. Its interior cluttered with empty shelving, discarded machinery, and the detritus of past production. Its silence and isolation made it a frequent destination for trespassers, urban explorers, and, eventually, paranormal investigators seeking evidence of the unexplained. What was recorded on the factory's surveillance cameras, however, far exceeded ordinary expectations of a haunted location. A flying object, thrown by an invisible force, accompanied by the fleeting presence of a shadowy humanoid form. The incident occurred shortly after 2 a.m., when the factory was otherwise empty, aside from security cameras and the occasional night patrol. The footage begins with the normal static of a dimly lit storage area. Boxes stacked on shelves remain still for several seconds. Then, suddenly, a crate launches off the top shelf, tumbling across the concrete floor. The sound of the impact echoes unnaturally in the vast, empty space. More boxes follow in rapid succession, some colliding with one another. While lighter objects, stools, small metal parts, and crates move in precise arcs that suggest an intelligent force guiding them. As the airborne objects scatter across the frame, a shadowy figure appears in the corner of the footage. The humanoid form is indistinct, a dark silhouette without discernible features, yet its movements are deliberate. The figure appears to strike the objects with unseen hands, sending them flying through the air with increasing velocity. Its actions seem coordinated, almost playful, as though it is demonstrating its power over the environment. The figure lingers briefly, then disappears into the darkness of the factory, leaving behind the chaos of overturned boxes, scattered debris, and a lingering sense of menace. Security staff, reviewing the footage the following morning, reported feelings of unease and confusion. No evidence of trespassers or structural causes could explain the flying objects. All doors and windows were locked, motion sensors indicated no human entry, and the building's physical security measures had not been breached. The disturbance was localized and precise, suggesting that the force behind it was not only unseen but capable of manipulating the environment with intent and purpose. Following the initial review, paranormal investigators were called to the site. Upon arrival, they immediately noticed a pervasive sense of being watched, even in areas of the factory that had remained untouched for decades. Team members reported cold spots, brief temperature drops, and a subtle pressure in the air. Whispers, faint but persistent, seemed to emanate from empty rooms, often impossible to locate definitively. These auditory phenomena, combined with the prior footage, suggested an entity capable of both physical interaction and a presence that could affect the perceptions of the living. Investigators conducted a series of experiments using EMF meters, infrared cameras, and thermal imaging. Several of these devices registered unexplained fluctuations, particularly in the storage area, captured on the original footage. Sudden electromagnetic spikes corresponded with locations where boxes had been displaced, as if the entity's energy had been concentrated to influence matter. Thermal readings revealed transient anomalies, brief shapes or shadows that appeared only on infrared and vanished moments later, lending further credibility to the claims of a physical yet invisible presence. The factory's history provided context for these phenomena. During its years of operation, numerous accidents, injuries, and disputes had occurred on site, leaving a legacy of tension and tragedy. While investigators could not confirm a direct link between past events and the apparition, some theorized that intense residual energy could have coalesced into a form capable of intelligent action. Unlike simple residual hauntings, which replay events passively, the figure's interaction with objects suggested awareness and deliberate intent. The coordinated chaos of flying boxes and the fleeting strikes by the humanoid silhouette reinforced this theory. Employees and visitors who entered the factory after the incident described additional unsettling experiences. Many reported the sensation of being followed by invisible eyes, hearing low murmurs in the halls, or catching fleeting glimpses of shadows moving just beyond the corner of vision. Objects occasionally shifted or fell without explanation, sometimes accompanied by cold drafts in areas where heating and ventilation systems were inactive. Even seasoned urban explorers and paranormal researchers admitted to a growing anxiety when traversing the site, noting the difference between ordinary fear and the palpable, targeted presence in the building. The footage and subsequent experiences quickly drew attention from both local media and paranormal enthusiasts. Analysts and skeptics debated the validity of the events, with some attributing the footage to camera glitches, drafts, or accidental motion. However, the combination of recorded physical activity, environmental anomalies, and independent witness accounts made these explanations difficult to reconcile. The object-moving incident appeared purposeful, with the figure exerting force over multiple items in rapid succession. A level of coordination unlikely to be caused by natural forces alone. Today, the abandoned factory in Philadelphia is regarded as one of the city's most compelling paranormal locations. The footage of the flying boxes and the shadowy humanoid form remains a subject of study for investigators, illustrating how an unseen force can interact with both objects and human perception. Visitors report lingering unease, cold spots, and the sensation of unseen observers. While the legend of the flying object adds to the building's reputation as a site where past energies may not rest quietly, the 2019 incident demonstrates the unsettling potential of intelligent or residual spectral activity within abandoned structures. A single security camera captured an event that combined visual evidence, physical interaction, and a lingering psychological impact. For those who review the footage, walk the floors, or hear whispers in the empty halls, the factory serves as a chilling reminder that some forces, unseen and unpredictable, can manipulate the world around us, leaving tangible chaos and an enduring sense of fear. In Boston, Massachusetts, a hospital corridor became the site of an unsettling and inexplicable incident in 2020, captured on CCTV and leaving staff and investigators questioning the limits of the paranormal. A nurse, completing her late-night rounds, was walking down a long, dimly lit hallway when an invisible yet forceful presence propelled her backward into the wall. The incident lasted only a few seconds, but the psychological impact was immediate, and the security footage revealed details that were both disturbing and difficult to explain. The nurse, a seasoned professional, accustomed to long hours and stressful situations, described the event as a sudden and overwhelming pressure pressing against her chest. "It was as if something had grabbed me and slammed me back," she recalled, though physically, she was unharmed. There were no signs of collision injuries, beyond minor abrasions from her uniform brushing against the wall. The intensity of the experience, however, left her shaken and unable to continue her rounds without support. She reported that the sensation was entirely localized, as if a focused force had acted directly upon her, rather than a general environmental hazard. Security personnel reviewing the CCTV footage were startled by what they observed. The video shows the nurse walking down the hallway, approaching the intersection near the supply closet. In a sudden, almost imperceptible moment, a transparent figure lunges from the shadowed corner, striking the nurse with enough force to push her back several feet. The figure itself is barely distinguishable, an ethereal silhouette with faint contours suggesting a humanoid shape. It seems to move with purpose, appearing briefly before vanishing into the deeper shadows of the corridor. No other staff or visitors were present, and the hallway was fully monitored by cameras, eliminating the possibility of a human perpetrator. Investigators were called to the hospital after the incident to examine the corridor for any possible explanations. The physical layout of the hallway was ordinary, long, narrow, and well lit, with cameras at both ends. Environmental factors, such as drafts, structural vibrations, or magnetic interference, were considered but ruled out. The impact appeared to be applied in a precise manner, targeting only the nurse without disturbing nearby objects or walls in a significant way. This precision suggested a controlled and possibly intelligent presence, rather than a simple poltergeist or random residual energy. Further examination of the footage revealed subtle details that intensified the mystery. The entity appeared to have a faint shimmer, as if it was partially visible to the camera but not to the naked eye. After the nurse was pushed, the figure moved swiftly along the corridor, and disappeared into a shadowed alcove, leaving no trace. Security staff noted that the footage seemed to slow slightly during the moment of impact, a phenomenon they could not attribute to technical malfunction. The combination of physical interaction, visual presence, and precise movement created a compelling case for a paranormal event rather than an ordinary accident. Following the incident, hospital staff reported heightened awareness and unease in the affected corridor. Nurses described feeling a constant presence, a sense of being watched even when the hallway was empty. Some reported hearing faint whispers, indistinct but chilling, as though the entity communicated or observed silently. Temperature fluctuations were noted in the corridor, with sudden cold spots coinciding with the area where the figure had lunged. Staff who passed through the corridor alone at night often felt inexplicable pressure on their bodies or the sensation of an unseen force brushing past them. Paranormal investigators who studied the hospital cited both historical and psychological factors in the occurrence. The hospital, built in the early 20th century, had been the site of numerous critical incidents, including emergency surgeries, infectious disease wards, and patient deaths. Some researchers suggested that the accumulated emotional energy of these events could manifest as an intelligent presence, capable of interacting with the living in specific ways. The precise targeting of the nurse, however, indicated that the entity may have retained awareness of human movement and activity rather than merely repeating residual energy patterns. Hospital administrators took steps to address staff concerns, including increased monitoring, environmental inspections, and consultation with paranormal experts. While the hallway continued to operate normally from a functional standpoint, employees were advised to work in pairs during late-night shifts, particularly in areas with historical activity. Some staff chose to avoid the corridor when possible, citing discomfort and lingering fear after witnessing the footage or experiencing subtle phenomena themselves. The nurse involved in the incident described ongoing effects beyond the initial encounter. She reported difficulty sleeping, occasional nightmares, and a persistent feeling of pressure or observation in unfamiliar corridors. Despite reassurance from medical and security personnel, the psychological impact of being targeted by an unseen force remained significant. Her testimony, combined with the CCTV evidence, reinforced the belief that the incident was not only real but also highly unusual in its targeted nature. Local paranormal investigators returned to the corridor on multiple occasions. Using EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recording devices, they documented energy spikes coinciding with staff movement and recorded unexplained whispers that matched the timing of the original incident. While no further physical attacks were observed on staff, the evidence suggested that a presence remained active, particularly during quiet nighttime hours. The event in the Boston hospital serves as a chilling example of direct paranormal interaction within a controlled environment. A single security camera, combined with eyewitness testimony and physical sensations, documented an occurrence that cannot be easily explained by conventional means. The figure's precise lunging motion, its transparency, and its immediate disappearance after exerting force on the nurse suggest a level of intent that challenges traditional understandings of hauntings. Today, the hospital corridor is still considered an area of heightened sensitivity. Staff continue to report fleeting sensations and occasional unexplained phenomena. While the CCTV footage remains a reference point for both skeptics and paranormal enthusiasts, the story of the pushed nurse has become part of local lore, illustrating how an unseen force can exert both physical and psychological influence, leaving a lasting impression on those who encounter it. It is a stark reminder that even the most familiar and seemingly safe environments can harbor entities whose presence is tangible, deliberate, and deeply unsettling. In Phoenix, Arizona, a gas station became the scene of a bizarre and unexplainable event that captured both public attention and the interest of paranormal investigators. One evening in 2021, a lone attendant was finishing her shift when a security camera recorded a masked figure rushing toward the register. The figure appeared determined, moving quickly and with intent, as if committing a robbery. The employee instinctively stepped back, heart racing, and braced herself for confrontation. Yet, when she looked up a moment later, the figure was gone. At first, she assumed the masked individual had ducked behind the counter or exited through a door she hadn't noticed. But when she reviewed the security footage later, her assumptions were shattered. The video showed the figure advancing in mid-stride toward the register and then vanishing entirely, as if it had never existed. The disappearance occurred abruptly, with no visual distortion or interruption in the footage. There were no traces on the floor, no movement of air, no footprints, nothing to suggest a physical presence had been there at all. The employee immediately contacted police, who arrived within minutes. Officers conducted a thorough search of the premises, checking every exit and entry point. Security footage from surrounding areas and nearby businesses was reviewed to determine if anyone had entered or left the gas station during the time frame, but there was no evidence of an intruder, no fingerprints, no surveillance anomalies outside the immediate camera, nothing. The gas station had been completely secured, and yet the footage clearly captured a figure approaching the register and disappearing without explanation. Witnesses who observed the footage described a surreal quality to the masked figure. The person appeared solid and human, wearing dark clothing and a generic mask. But its movements were unnervingly precise, almost robotic. The sudden vanishing seemed impossible by any physical standard, leaving experts and law enforcement perplexed. The employee recalled an intense feeling of being watched, even after the figure vanished, a lingering sense of presence that remained throughout the remainder of her shift. Paranormal investigators later examined the footage and the gas station. They noted the abrupt disappearance coincided with a faint distortion in the visual static, suggesting an interaction between the figure and an unseen force. Thermal cameras placed in the area during their investigation recorded subtle, transient anomalies, brief bursts of cooler temperatures that appeared without explanation. The pattern of the anomalies corresponded roughly to the location where the figure had vanished, reinforcing the idea that an unseen entity may have been at work. The gas station had no history of violent incidents at that particular time or date, and the employee confirmed she had seen no prior suspicious behavior in the weeks leading up to the event. This made the appearance of the masked figure even more puzzling. Unlike typical hauntings or poltergeist activity, which often involve objects moving or faint apparitions, this incident involved a figure interacting with the environment in a way that mimicked real-world behavior, rushing toward the register, yet defied all laws of physics by disappearing completely. Mid-section staff members who worked subsequent shifts reported subtle but unsettling phenomena. Lights occasionally flickered in the immediate vicinity of the register, and a cold draft would sweep across the floor, even though the air conditioning system was inactive. Some employees reported hearing faint footsteps behind them when the gas station was empty, accompanied by a low, whispering sound that seemed just out of comprehension. While these occurrences were minor compared to the security footage incident, they reinforced the impression that the gas station harbored an active, unseen presence. Police and security personnel remained skeptical, considering potential technical glitches or editing errors in the footage. Yet, careful review revealed no signs of tampering. The cameras functioned normally before and after the event, and adjacent surveillance footage confirmed the absence of human traffic. The mystery persisted. A figure clearly visible, behaving as though it were real, yet physically non-existent. Experts in security systems agreed that, under normal circumstances, such an event should be impossible. Local media coverage amplified the story, dubbing the event the Vanishing Robber. Residents and paranormal enthusiasts speculated about ghostly intruders, residual energy imprints, or intelligent spirits capable of interacting with the living world. The footage itself circulated widely, with viewers noting the uncanny realism of the figure's gait and posture before its abrupt disappearance. Many commented on the eerie silence captured in the video, the faint hum of fluorescent lights the only sound, emphasizing the emptiness left in the wake of the figure. The employee who encountered the figure described an ongoing sense of unease when working the night shift. She reported that even weeks after the incident, she would glance toward the register with a heightened awareness, expecting movement that never occurred. Despite this, she continued her job, though she often worked in pairs or requested security personnel nearby during night shifts. Her experience, combined with the clear evidence on CCTV, made the gas station a compelling case for investigators studying unexplained phenomena. For paranormal experts, the incident at the Phoenix gas station illustrates a rare form of interaction between a seemingly human figure and the physical environment without leaving evidence of corporeal presence. The masked figure, vanishing mid-stride, challenges conventional understanding of both hauntings and material existence. Unlike simple apparitions, it demonstrated purposeful action and awareness of its surroundings, creating a unique and unsettling encounter. Today, the gas station remains open, though staff and management treat the incident with caution. Visitors who pass by the location sometimes ask about the vanishing robber, intrigued by the story and the footage. Security personnel continue to monitor the cameras closely, but no repeat appearances have been documented. Yet the memory of the masked figure, frozen mid-stride and then gone, lingers in the minds of those who witnessed it, serving as a chilling reminder that some forces, unseen and unbound by the rules of the physical world, can manifest in the most ordinary places, leaving fear, confusion, and unanswered questions in their wake. In Denver, Colorado, an ordinary elementary school became the site of an extraordinary and unsettling incident in 2022, captured on a classroom surveillance camera and leaving staff and parents alike deeply unnerved. The incident occurred in one of the older classrooms, a room lined with colorful posters and small wooden desks arranged neatly for students. Late one evening, a janitor conducting routine checks noticed a faint sound of scraping across the floor, but, seeing no one, dismissed it as the settling of the building. The following morning, however, footage from the classroom camera revealed a far more disturbing event than anyone could have imagined. The surveillance video shows a desk, a standard child-sized piece of furniture, sliding across the room on its own. At first, it seems as though a gentle push might be moving it, but a closer look reveals a faint, transparent figure standing behind the desk, its outlines shimmering slightly, as if caught between two worlds. The figure appears humanoid, but details of clothing or facial features are indistinct, giving it an otherworldly and ethereal quality. It pushes the desk deliberately, moving it several feet across the floor before fading into the shadows of the classroom wall. The movement is smooth and purposeful, and the figure seems entirely aware of its surroundings, navigating around chairs and small tables with precision. When teachers and staff arrived the next morning, they were greeted by a scene that mirrored the surveillance footage. Desks and chairs were scattered across the classroom, as if a storm had swept through. Nothing was broken, but the arrangement was chaotic and completely unlike the neat order left the night before. A lingering chill permeated the air, noticeable even to those accustomed to the occasional draft common in older school buildings. The room felt heavy, and several staff members reported an unsettling sensation, as if unseen eyes were observing their every movement. School administrators reviewed the surveillance footage immediately, hoping to find a logical explanation. The video clearly showed the desk moving on its own, with the transparent figure behind it. There were no signs of tampering, and no staff member or intruder entered the room during the time frame. Doors and windows were securely locked, and the alarm system confirmed no breaches. Even the janitor, who had been in the building the previous evening, confirmed that no one had been in the classroom. Teachers who returned to the classroom in the following days reported minor, yet disturbing phenomena. Some heard faint scratching sounds along the floorboards, even when the room was empty. Others reported the sensation of being lightly brushed or nudged, as if the same unseen presence that moved the desk was still aware of the living. Cold spots persisted near the corners of the room, and objects left on tables seemed subtly out of place, though never damaged. Students returning to the classroom after the incident felt a heightened sense of unease, reporting the feeling of being watched and occasionally hearing whispers they could not understand. Paranormal investigators were called in to examine the classroom, They noted that the figure on the surveillance footage resembled classic reports of residual hauntings, but with a more active element, unlike standard residual energy, which often repeats actions without awareness of the living. This entity seemed purposeful, able to push a desk with coordination and avoid obstacles in its path. EMF meters detected intermittent spikes of energy in the same area where the figure appeared, coinciding with the times of reported activity. Temperature readings revealed sudden, localized drops, adding to the eerie and unnatural environment. The history of the school provided potential context for the haunting. Built in the early 20th century, the elementary school had a long history of use, including a time when classrooms were shared by multiple grades and children from nearby neighborhoods. Some reports suggested that the room where the desk moved had been the site of minor accidents in the past, though nothing severe was officially recorded. Paranormal experts suggested that emotional residue from past occupants, particularly children who spent long hours in the classroom, might have created a lingering presence capable of interacting with physical objects. Despite investigations, no definitive explanation has ever been found. Teachers report that the classroom remains a place of subtle disturbances. Desks occasionally shift slightly overnight, lights flicker without electrical cause, and the cold spots and strange feelings persist. Some staff have grown accustomed to these occurrences, though they remain uneasy about being alone in the room. Many speculate that the figure might be the spirit of a former student, replaying an action or exploring its environment in a way that was never completed in life. The surveillance footage itself has become a central point of discussion. Shared among educators, parents, and paranormal enthusiasts, viewers are struck by the figure's deliberate movements and the undeniable realism of the desk sliding across the floor. Staff continued to monitor the classroom closely, and security cameras remain in place to capture any future activity. The incident has sparked increased awareness of the building's history and prompted discussions about safety, perception, and the unknown. The moving desk in Denver stands as a chilling reminder that even familiar environments, filled with the laughter and learning of children, can harbor presences that defy explanation. In the quiet hours, when the school is empty and shadows fall across the room, the desk may move again, and the figure may return, silently reminding all who watch that the boundary between the living and the unseen is thinner than most dare to imagine. In Miami, Florida, a residential apartment complex became the center of unsettling activity that left tenants frightened and security personnel perplexed. The events began in late 2022 when building security installed a series of cameras in common hallways and stairwells following reports of strange noises from residents. Initially, the concerns were dismissed as ordinary city sounds or pranksters, but footage soon revealed something far more inexplicable. One night, cameras recorded a dark, shadowy figure moving swiftly through the corridors. The figure darted along the hallways, sometimes disappearing behind corners only to reappear moments later further down the hall. Doors that were securely closed slammed violently without cause, startling tenants and setting off security alarms. The figure seemed aware of its environment, moving with agility as if it were navigating the building purposefully. Despite its human-like movements, the figure appeared almost ethereal, darker than any shadow cast by normal lighting, and it left no visible footprints or traces. Tenants began reporting experiences that mirrored the security footage. Residents described hearing loud knocks on apartment doors when no one was home, soft whispers in empty hallways, and unexplained cold drafts that seemed to pass directly through their body. Some claimed to feel the weight of invisible hands resting briefly on their shoulders as they moved through the corridors late at night. The experiences were consistent across multiple floors, leading many to fear that the building was haunted by a single, persistent entity. One resident, a young professional living on the 4th floor, recounted an encounter that left her shaken. She was returning from a late shift when she noticed the hallway lights flicker in a pattern she could not explain. As she approached her door, she felt a sudden, cold pressure on her shoulder. Spinning around, she saw nothing, yet she heard a faint whisper that sounded like her name. Terrified, she called security, who confirmed that cameras had recorded a shadowy form moving past a hallway just moments before. Security personnel reviewed footage from multiple nights, consistently capturing the same dark figure moving at high speed along hallways and stairwells. On several occasions, the figure slammed doors with enough force to rattle frames and trigger alarm sensors. Yet no one was ever present when staff arrived to investigate. The entity appeared intelligent and aware, capable of interacting with the environment in ways that seemed almost purposeful, yet it left no physical evidence of its presence. The phenomenon was reported on different floors, leading some to speculate that the entity could move freely through walls or corridors without restriction. Residents described a growing feeling of unease, noting that shadows seemed to linger longer than natural light would allow, and that certain hallways felt alive with unseen activity. The combination of security footage and personal experiences convinced both tenants and investigators that something otherworldly was occurring. Paranormal investigators were invited to the building to study the activity. Using EMF meters and thermal cameras, they detected sudden spikes of energy in the areas where the shadow figure was most often recorded. Temperature anomalies accompanied the spikes, with pockets of frigid air appearing in otherwise climate-controlled hallways. Infrared cameras occasionally captured a faint, human-like shape, consistent with the shadow seen on standard surveillance footage. Investigators suggested that the building might host an intelligent haunting, a residual presence that was capable of interacting with living residents. Tenants reported other phenomena as well. Lights would flicker inexplicably, elevators sometimes stopped momentarily between floors, and faint scratching or tapping sounds echoed in hallways when no maintenance work was occurring. Some reported seeing peripheral movement out of the corners of their eyes, only to turn and find nothing. The fear was compounded by the security footage, which clearly documented a figure moving in a manner impossible for any ordinary intruder to achieve without detection. Several long-term residents recalled that the building had a history of previous tenants experiencing unusual occurrences. Though past incidents were not widely publicized, local urban legends suggested that the shadow might be the spirit of a former resident who had met an untimely or tragic end in the building. Paranormal experts theorized that the entity could be drawn to human energy, especially the fear and anxiety generated by tenants as they moved through the hallways. This would explain why the shadow seemed most active late at night when the building was nearly empty. Attempts to confront or interact with the figure yielded limited results. Residents who called out to the entity reported no response, though the air often grew colder and the lights flickered in acknowledgement. Some tried leaving objects in the hallways to see if they would be moved, but results were inconsistent, further emphasizing the unpredictable nature of the presence. While no one was physically harmed, the psychological impact on tenants was undeniable, creating an atmosphere of tension and vigilance throughout the building. Over time, building management increased security measures, installing additional cameras, motion sensors, and lighting in key areas. Despite these precautions, the shadow continued to appear, moving faster than anyone could follow and demonstrating a seeming awareness of its surveillance. Residents adapted by avoiding the hallways alone late at night and sharing stories to help process their fear. Many remained skeptical, but the combination of visual evidence, personal encounters, and paranormal investigation reports made the existence of an unexplained presence hard to dismiss. The shadow in the Miami apartment hallways remains an enduring mystery. Security footage, eyewitness accounts, and paranormal investigations consistently point to a phenomenon that defies conventional explanation. Whether a restless spirit, an intelligent haunting, or a manifestation of residual energy, the figure continues to haunt the building's corridors. Tenants remain vigilant, aware that behind the doors and around the corners, an unseen presence may still be moving swiftly, knocking, whispering, and leaving an unmistakable impression of fear wherever it goes. Even in a city teeming with life and light, the dark figure in the hallways serves as a reminder that some presences are neither seen nor understood, yet undeniably felt. In Dallas, Texas, a storage facility, became the scene of a chilling and unexplained series of events that left staff and security personnel questioning reality. In early 2023, the facility had upgraded its surveillance system after minor reports of missing items, placing cameras in hallways and storage aisles. At first, the footage seemed mundane, capturing only the occasional employee or security guard performing routine checks. But one night, the cameras recorded an event that defied explanation. The incident began late in the evening, when a series of boxers appeared to be thrown across one of the storage aisles. The footage shows crates, cardboard boxes, and small storage containers hurling into walls and clattering across the concrete floor, as if propelled by an invisible force. There was no visible intruder in the footage. Doors and entry points remained locked and secured. And security personnel confirmed that no one had accessed the area during the time of the event. The boxes flew with startling force, bouncing and scattering debris as though moved by a human hand with deliberate intent. In one frame, the CCTV captured something even more disturbing, a shadowy hand, distinct yet translucent, appearing to swing the boxes repeatedly before fading into the darkness. The movement of the hand was deliberate, almost playful, as if the presence controlling it was aware of the chaos it created. Security staff, watching the footage in real time, reported feeling a chill descend over the room, despite the building being heated, and a faint, eerie laughter seemed to echo faintly in the corridors. The laughter was not captured on the camera's audio, but several guards insisted they heard it clearly, coming from empty aisles. Following the footage review, the security team conducted a thorough inspection of the facility. Doors were double-checked, locks examined, and alarms verified. No evidence of intruders was found. Nothing indicated tampering, and the building's electronic systems were functioning normally. Despite the absence of a rational explanation, boxes continued to appear displaced in random storage units over the following weeks, though not always captured on camera. Some crates were found smashed against walls, others stacked in corners. Yet every time employees checked the footage or attempted to witness the events, nothing appeared. Staff members began reporting other phenomena that coincided with the strikes. Some described hearing footsteps in empty aisles, the sound of objects being nudged or shifted when no one was present. Cold spots appeared in different parts of the storage facility, localized and intense enough to cause visible breath in the air, even when the building was warm. A few security guards recounted fleeting glimpses of shadowy shapes moving along the walls, vanishing the moment they focused on them directly. Many described a pervasive sense of being watched, as if an unseen entity was tracking their movements and reacting to their presence. One guard in particular, who had been monitoring the CCTV live during the initial series of strikes, shared his experience. After witnessing the boxers hurl across the room and the shadowy hand appear, he left the monitoring station to investigate. As he walked the aisles, the hair on his arms stood on end. He reported feeling something brush past him, and a faint, almost childlike laughter echoed down the empty corridor. Turning quickly, he saw nothing, yet a single box had been nudged closer to him, as though the presence wanted to make its existence undeniable. This encounter left him visibly shaken, and he requested reassignment to daytime duties for the following weeks. Paranormal investigators were invited to the facility to document and analyze the occurrences. They used electromagnetic field detectors, thermal cameras, and audio recording devices to attempt capturing evidence of the entity responsible for the repeated strikes. EMF meters registered intermittent spikes in the sections of the building where boxes were most frequently thrown. Thermal cameras occasionally recorded vague, humanoid shapes, barely discernible, that seemed to disappear when approached. Audio equipment picked up faint static and indistinct whispers in the aisles, consistent with the reports of laughter from guards. Investigators concluded that the activity was consistent with an intelligent or interactive haunting, rather than residual energy, due to the apparent awareness of the entity in moving objects. Employees noticed patterns in the strikes. Boxes were rarely thrown during the daytime and usually occurred in unoccupied aisles late at night. The force used to hurl objects seemed variable, sometimes gentle enough to move a box a few feet, other times violent enough to send containers crashing into walls. The unpredictability contributed to heightened tension among staff. Many avoided working alone at night, and multiple security guards would patrol in pairs to reduce the sense of vulnerability. Despite repeated investigations, no conclusive explanation emerged. Skeptics suggested pranksters or drafts, but security footage and access logs disproved any human involvement. Structural explanations, such as shifting shelves or unstable boxes, failed to account for the precision and apparent intentionality of the movements, as well as the shadowy hand seen on camera. Paranormal experts maintained that the facility might be haunted by an intelligent presence, possibly tied to an incident in the building's past. Although the exact origin remained unknown, the repeated strikes at the Dallas storage facility remain a source of fear and fascination. CCTV footage continues to show objects moving seemingly on their own, shadowy figures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, and occasional, unexplainable sounds. Staff remain vigilant, aware that behind stacked boxes and empty aisles, an unseen presence may be active, watching, and capable of interacting with the material world. The shadowy hand and the laughter from the empty corridors serve as chilling reminders that even in spaces built for storage and organization, the unknown can break through, leaving a haunting imprint that defies logic and challenges our understanding of reality. In Seattle, Washington, a large shopping mall became the setting for a series of mysterious and unsettling events that left security personnel and staff unnerved. It began in early 2023 when overnight surveillance cameras captured strange occurrences in empty corridors and retail spaces. The mall, usually bustling during the day, transformed at night into an eerie labyrinth where shadows seemed to move with a will of their own. One night, security footage revealed dark, humanoid shapes drifting through hallways. These shadows appeared to interact with their environment, sometimes picking up store mannequins and moving them across the polished floors before dropping them abruptly. The movement was deliberate, almost playful, yet carried an undertone of menace. Security personnel were startled to see the objects shift as if handled by an invisible shopper, yet the footage showed no physical person present. The shadows moved smoothly, sometimes merging with the darkness along the walls, appearing and disappearing with an unnatural fluidity. Upon reviewing the footage, security guards noticed something even more disturbing. On several occasions, footprints were visible on the polished marble floors, appearing in the camera's infrared view. The prints led from corridor to corridor, but when staff checked the areas in person, there was no one there. The footprints sometimes appeared fully formed, other times just faint impressions that vanished as if they had never existed. These inexplicable signs of movement intensified the sense that the mall was being haunted by unseen entities. Cleaning crews, working late at night, began reporting their own experiences. They described sudden cold spots appearing along hallways and in empty stores, drops in temperature so sharp that breath became visible in the air. Some workers reported feeling the sensation of being watched, a prickling awareness that followed them as they moved from aisle to aisle. Whispers echoed faintly, often repeating words like leave or watch out, but always in tones too soft to fully understand. These eerie experiences were corroborated by multiple employees, creating a shared sense of unease that extended throughout the building. One janitor recounted a particularly unnerving encounter. While mopping the floor near a department store, she felt a strong, icy breeze brush past her, accompanied by the faint sound of fabric shifting, as if someone had walked by carrying bags. Turning quickly, she saw nothing. Yet a mannequin that had been standing upright moments before was now lying face down on the floor, several feet away. Security reviewed the footage and confirmed that no one had entered the store during that time, and the doors had remained locked. Further investigation revealed that the invisible shoppers seemed to favor certain areas of the mall. Department stores, jewelry shops, and clothing outlets were more commonly affected, with mannequins shifted or products slightly displaced. In some corridors, shadows could be seen moving in groups, almost as if they were exploring or shopping together, examining objects, and then leaving them haphazardly. The pattern suggested intelligence and awareness, not random poltergeist activity, implying that the entities were interacting with the mall as if it were still filled with customers. Security cameras recorded these occurrences multiple times over several weeks. In one clip, a group of shadows moved down a corridor, each appearing vaguely human in shape but fully opaque in darkness. They stopped at a clothing display, lifted mannequins, and then disappeared into thin air, leaving the objects scattered on the floor. Guards reviewing the footage reported an overwhelming sense of being observed, as if the unseen figures were aware of the cameras recording them. Attempts to follow or confront the shadows in person yielded no results. When approached, the entities vanished, leaving only the chill in the air and the displaced objects behind. Paranormal investigators were invited to examine the mall. They deployed EMF detectors, thermal cameras, and audio equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the invisible shoppers. Their instruments recorded sudden spikes in electromagnetic activity along the hallways, coinciding with the appearance of shadows in the video footage. Thermal cameras occasionally revealed faint human-like shapes, only to vanish the moment investigators attempted to focus on them. Audio recorders picked up whispers, indistinct and fragmented, which seemed to come from no particular direction. Investigators concluded that the activity was consistent with intelligent hauntings, noting the entities' apparent awareness of human presence and their manipulation of physical objects. The mall staff and management took precautions in response to the ongoing activity. Security teams increased patrols, especially during late-night hours, and employees were instructed not to enter certain corridors alone. Cleaning crews adjusted their schedules to avoid the most active areas, and additional lighting was installed to minimize shadows that might attract the unseen visitors. Despite these measures, the activity persisted. Footprints continued to appear without explanation. Mannequins were rearranged or toppled, and cold spots remained unpredictable. The invisible shoppers of the Seattle Mall remain an enduring mystery. CCTV footage, eyewitness reports, and paranormal investigations consistently document occurrences that defy conventional explanation. The shadows moving through hallways, lifting mannequins, and leaving footprints where no person walks suggest an intelligent presence capable of interacting with the material world. Staff continue to navigate the mall with caution, aware that, even in the absence of human visitors, the building may still be inhabited by entities that observe, manipulate, and leave behind unmistakable signs of their presence. The phenomenon serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes, even familiar and well-lit public spaces can harbor unseen presences, moving silently among the corridors and leaving a lasting impression of fear and uncertainty. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a historic museum became the site of a series of unexplained paranormal incidents that have left staff and security personnel deeply unsettled. The museum, known for its rare artifacts and meticulously curated exhibits, maintained strict security measures, including night cameras and motion sensors, to prevent theft. Despite these precautions, a night camera captured a chilling scene that seemed to defy explanation. During a routine overnight check in 2024, the security camera recorded a figure moving silently through the main exhibit hall. The shape appeared vaguely human, but shrouded in shadows, drifting between glass cases and display pedestals. It paused in front of several exhibits, reaching out as if to inspect the objects. Moments later, items toppled from their stands, shattering or clattering onto the floor. The movement was deliberate, careful in some instances, and forceful in others, suggesting that the entity had awareness of its surroundings and a capability to interact with the museum's artifacts. Security staff were immediately notified, and 2 officers arrived within minutes. When they entered the hall, the objects lay strewn across the floor, yet no intruder could be found. All doors and entry points remained locked, and motion sensors had registered no human presence. The officers reported a palpable chill in the air, a sudden drop in temperature that made the hairs on their arms stand on end. One officer recounted feeling a cold, almost tangible hand brush against his back, though no one was behind him. The sensation left him shaken, and he described the room as being alive with a presence that watched and moved with intent. Subsequent nights brought similar experiences. The same camera captured the shadowy figure wandering through different wings of the museum, often stopping to touch or knock over artifacts. Footsteps, soft and echoing unnaturally across the marble floors, could be heard in real time by security personnel monitoring the feeds. Occasionally, the figure would appear in multiple locations simultaneously in separate camera views, vanishing the instant anyone tried to confront it. These repeated sightings reinforced the idea that the entity was not simply a residual haunting, but an intelligent, interactive presence, seemingly devoted to the museum's artifacts in a way that both fascinated and terrified those who witnessed it. Museum staff began to notice unusual occurrences during daylight hours as well. Display cases sometimes appeared unlocked, objects slightly shifted from their original positions, and visitors reported fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures moving just beyond their peripheral vision. Curators described feeling watched while handling delicate artifacts, and one employee reported that her notes and catalog entries had been mysteriously rearranged overnight. No rational explanation, mechanical failure, drafts, or human tampering could account for the precision and apparent purposefulness of these incidents. The entity, which staff began referring to as the Phantom Guardian, seemed almost protective, yet unpredictable. While it did not appear to harm individuals directly, the toppling of artifacts and objects suggested a restless energy, a presence that interacted with the museum's history in ways difficult to comprehend. Some speculated that it was the spirit of a former curator or caretaker, bound to the museum even after death, maintaining vigilance over the exhibits in its own mysterious way. Others theorized that it could be a residual imprint of the building's long history, given its age and the number of significant events that had taken place within its walls. Paranormal investigators were invited to document and analyze the activity. They deployed electromagnetic field detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recording devices throughout the museum. EMF readings spiked whenever the figure appeared on camera, and thermal imaging occasionally revealed vague human shapes, only to vanish the moment investigators approached. Audio recordings picked up whispers and faint brushing noises, consistent with the reports of objects moving on their own. Investigators noted that the presence seemed highly intelligent, capable of interacting with its environment, responding to human attention, and deliberately avoiding direct confrontation. Security officers reported lingering unease, even when the museum was empty. Several recounted experiencing sudden chills, hearing footsteps following them in isolated wings, and sensing a weighty presence in the air. The feeling of being observed was intense, especially near older exhibits containing fragile or historically significant items. Some staff described the sensation as if an unseen figure was actively monitoring their movements, ensuring that nothing was out of place, while simultaneously reminding them of its unseen authority. Management implemented additional measures to ensure both security and staff safety. Overnight patrols were increased, and motion sensors were strategically placed to track any anomaly in the galleries. Despite these precautions, the incidents persisted, reinforcing the belief among employees that the Phantom Guardian was not constrained by physical barriers or typical security measures. Its activity remained unpredictable, capable of interacting with objects, creating cold spots, and manifesting as a shadowy figure that could appear and vanish at will. Visitors and staff alike have come to accept the museum as a space where the unexplained intersects with history. The presence of the Phantom Guardian adds an aura of mystery, a reminder that the building itself carries echoes of the past, and that some energies may remain tethered to places of significance. The entity's interactions, both protective and disruptive, suggest a spirit deeply connected to the museum's artifacts, silently observing, occasionally intervening, and leaving behind traces that continue to intrigue, unsettle, and fascinate. The Philadelphia Museum's Phantom Guardian stands as a compelling testament to the unknown. The footage of objects falling, shadowy figures drifting between exhibits, and officers experiencing chilling touches continues to be reviewed and analyzed by security and paranormal teams. While the true nature of the entity remains a mystery, one thing is clear. Within the quiet, dimly lit halls of this historic museum, a watchful presence moves unseen, interacting with the artifacts and the people around them, leaving an indelible mark of fear, curiosity, and wonder. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, a large distribution warehouse became the focus of a series of mysterious events that left security personnel unsettled and local paranormal investigators intrigued. The facility, known for storing a wide range of goods and shipping products nationwide, operated around the clock with strict security protocols. Despite surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and locked entrances, a series of unexplained occurrences in 2022 drew attention to the warehouse's more mysterious side. It began on a quiet night when CCTV footage captured a box resting on the concrete floor of a storage bay. Moments later, the box lifted several feet into the air without any visible force. Security cameras recorded it gliding across the room in a smooth, deliberate motion before gently dropping back to the floor. The footage startled guards monitoring the feed. The box moved as if guided by an unseen hand, and no drafts, machinery, or structural anomalies could explain the phenomenon. Upon closer review, an even stranger detail emerged. A figure appeared, hovering above the floating box, vaguely human in shape but indistinct in form. The apparition lacked clear features and seemed shrouded in shadows, its presence fleeting yet unmistakable. It remained visible for only a few seconds, drifting over the box before vanishing entirely. Security personnel, watching the live feed, reported a sudden chill in the air and a sensation that someone or something was present in the room, despite the building being empty. Following this incident, guards began reporting their own experiences within the warehouse. Several mentioned hearing footsteps echoing across aisles, often approaching their position but stopping abruptly when investigated. Some claimed to feel cold breezes that seemed to originate from nowhere, and an oppressive sense of being watched lingered during their shifts. These experiences mirrored the patterns captured on CCTV, reinforcing the belief that the warehouse was not simply the site of random mechanical anomalies, but was somehow being influenced by an intelligent, unseen presence. The floating box incident became a focal point for ongoing activity. Additional footage over subsequent nights revealed similar events. Small items lifted and moved through storage bays, pallets shifting slightly without contact, and boxers nudged or toppled onto the floor. On each occasion, a faint, indistinct figure appeared nearby, hovering for brief moments before disappearing. The movements suggested awareness and purpose, as though the entity was inspecting or manipulating the stored items. Yet there was no indication of malice. Security guards described a variety of sensations in conjunction with the visual anomalies. One officer recounted standing in the main bay when he felt a firm, cold pressure on his shoulder, as if someone were leaning into him, yet he was alone. Another described hearing the distant hum of machinery, though no equipment was running, followed by the faint whisper of a voice he could not fully decipher. Many personnel reported a growing sense of unease, particularly in areas of the warehouse with older shelving units or stacks of boxes that had remained untouched for months. In response to the recurring phenomena, management enlisted a team of paranormal investigators to assess the site. Investigators deployed EMF detectors, thermal imaging cameras, and audio recorders throughout the facility. EMF readings spiked near the locations where floating objects were observed, and thermal cameras occasionally registered vague, human-like shapes that disappeared the instant an investigator attempted to focus on them. Audio recordings captured faint knocks, whispers, and the sound of boxes sliding across the floor without any visible cause. Investigators concluded that the warehouse exhibited signs of intelligent paranormal activity, with a presence capable of interacting with the environment and responding to human observation. Despite extensive monitoring and investigation, the floating box and the hovering figure continued to appear unpredictably. Security protocols were adjusted to minimize personnel exposure, with patrols increased and access restricted to the most active areas during night shifts. Yet the incidents persisted. suggesting that the entity was not confined by physical boundaries or traditional security measures. Its activity remained elusive, capable of moving objects, creating sudden cold spots, and manifesting as a shadowy figure that appeared and vanished at will. The phenomenon attracted attention not only from local media but also from enthusiasts of the paranormal. Footage of the floating box and the brief appearance of the hovering figure was reviewed widely, drawing speculation about the identity and purpose of the entity. Some theorized that it could be a residual spirit, perhaps linked to the warehouse's long history and the countless goods that passed through its doors. Others suggested that it might be an intelligent apparition, interacting with its environment in a manner reminiscent of a guardian or inspector, overseeing the items stored within the vast facility. For the staff of the Minneapolis warehouse, the floating box serves as a chilling reminder that even familiar spaces can harbor the unknown. Despite modern technology, surveillance systems, and security measures, the entity moves unseen, defying explanation and leaving clear evidence of its presence. Cold breezes, echoed footsteps, displaced items, and the fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure continue to unsettle employees during night shifts, blurring the line between the ordinary and the supernatural. The warehouse stands as a testament to the unexplained, where ordinary operations intersect with inexplicable activity. The floating box, the hovering figure, and the accompanying sensations of cold and observation have created a persistent mystery. Staff and investigators alike remain aware that within the seemingly empty aisles and towering shelves, an unseen presence moves silently, interacting with the physical world and leaving behind signs that challenge the boundaries of reality. It is a haunting reminder that even the most mundane spaces can conceal the extraordinary, and that sometimes what is unseen can be far more unsettling than anything visible. In New York City, a seemingly ordinary bank branch became the scene of a series of unnerving events that left both employees and authorities perplexed. The incident centered around a lone ATM machine situated near the lobby, a unit that, until recently, functioned without incident. The bank operated around the clock with strict surveillance measures, including multiple security cameras monitoring both the interior and exterior of the building. Despite these precautions, one night in late 2022, the ATM became the focus of a chilling encounter caught on camera. During the overnight hours, a surveillance camera recorded the ATM violently shaking. The machine rattled as if someone were inside, its screen flickering with static, and the card slot opening and closing repeatedly. The tremors were strong enough to knock small items off the nearby counter, yet the video showed no one physically touching the unit. The security feed clearly captured a shadowy figure hovering over the machine, clawing at the screen with long, indistinct fingers. The figure appeared partially transparent, its form dark and undefined, almost as though it existed between two planes of reality. When police and bank personnel arrived after the incident was reported, they found the lobby completely empty. Doors were locked, the alarm system was untouched, and there were no signs of forced entry or tampering. The machine itself was undamaged, and the bank's electronic systems showed no irregular activity apart from the footage. Employees who witnessed the recordings were shaken by the sight, particularly the way the shadowy figure appeared to move with intent, clawing at the ATM as though trying to access something hidden within. Following the initial incident, the bank increased its overnight security patrols. However, subsequent nights brought similar occurrences. The ATM would shake sporadically, lights on the screen flickering, and shadowy figures appearing briefly before vanishing the moment anyone approached. Security staff reported hearing faint scratching sounds coming from the area of the machine, accompanied by a low hum that seemed to resonate through the floor. Several employees described a sudden drop in temperature near the ATM, the cold air lingering unnaturally as though the presence carried its own chilling aura. The shadowy figure became known among staff as the clawing specter. Unlike a simple residual haunting, its behavior suggested intelligence and interaction with the environment. The way it moved, clawing at the machine and responding to human presence by disappearing, implied awareness. Some employees claimed that the specter would linger in the camera feed longer if no one was watching the monitors directly, almost as if it preferred to act unseen. Paranormal investigators were brought in to examine the branch. They deployed electromagnetic field detectors, thermal cameras, and audio recorders near the ATM. EMF spikes were recorded whenever the machine shook, coinciding with brief fluctuations in the thermal camera's readings. Audio devices picked up faint scratching, murmurs, and indistinct whispers in the immediate vicinity, though no human presence was detected. Investigators noted that the activity was concentrated around the ATM itself, suggesting that the entity had a specific attachment to the machine or what it represented. Theories about the nature of the clawing specter varied. Some speculated that it was a residual energy, possibly linked to the money handled by the ATM over the years, a manifestation of the countless transactions and human interactions that occurred in its presence. Others suggested it might be an intelligent spirit, drawn to the machine as a point of focus, engaging with it in ways that mirrored curiosity, frustration, or even a sense of guarding or claiming the object. Regardless of interpretation, the presence seemed purposeful, rather than chaotic, and exhibited behavior that challenged conventional explanations of paranormal activity. Bank employees reported lingering unease after the incidents. Some described feeling watched while performing routine tasks near the ATM. Even during daylight hours, when the machine was fully operational and the lobby busy, others experienced cold spots that followed them across the lobby, along with a subtle, almost imperceptible pressure in the air. The combined experiences created a pervasive sense that the clawing specter continued to observe, not just during its recorded appearances, but at other times when no cameras were present. Security measures were adjusted in an attempt to deter further activity. The ATM was temporarily taken offline, and motion sensors were recalibrated to detect even minor anomalies. Despite these precautions, the shaking resumed sporadically, and the shadowy figure returned on camera, maintaining the same pattern, clawing at the screen, appearing briefly, and vanishing when approached. The persistence of the phenomenon reinforced the belief among staff and investigators that this was not a mere mechanical malfunction or prank, but a genuine paranormal occurrence. Local media covered the story, and the footage quickly circulated online, sparking discussions among paranormal enthusiasts and skeptics alike. The combination of visible interaction, physical movement of the machine, and sensory effects such as cold spots and pressure left little doubt that something unexplained was present. The clawing specter became a subject of fascination, a modern ghost story tied to a contemporary setting where technology and the unseen collided in unnerving ways. For the employees of the New York Bank, the ATM serves as a chilling reminder that even mundane machines can become focal points for unexplained phenomena. The shaking, clawing figure, and the accompanying sensory disturbances continue to unsettle staff during night shifts, raising questions about the limits of the paranormal and the unseen forces that may inhabit everyday spaces. The clawing specter demonstrates that even in a heavily monitored, highly secure environment, the boundary between the known and the unknown can be disturbingly thin. In the bank's quiet hours, the ATM stands as a testament to the unexplained. Lights flicker, the screen trembles, and occasionally, a shadowy form appears, clawing at the machine before vanishing. Security personnel continue to monitor the activity with vigilance, yet the sense of a presence that can manipulate the physical world, respond to observation, and exist unseen persists. The shaking ATM and the clawing specter remain a modern enigma, reminding all who witness it that even in the heart of New York City, the extraordinary can appear where it is least expected. In Detroit, Michigan, an abandoned factory became the center of a series of chilling paranormal events that left security personnel, local residents, and investigators deeply unsettled. The sprawling facility, once a hub of industrial activity, had long been deserted after years of decline in the city's manufacturing sector. Despite being inactive for decades, the building retained the hum of its past. And in 2023, a series of unusual CCTV recordings brought attention to the location. The first incident occurred during an overnight security shift. Cameras placed throughout the factory caught something extraordinary. A ghostly figure operating machinery in sections of the building that no longer had electricity. The figure appeared human, dressed in old industrial workwear, but partially translucent. Shadows shifted around the figure independently, moving in ways that defied natural light sources. On the footage, the spectral worker was seen walking along conveyor belts and pressing buttons, causing large machines to start and stop with eerie precision. The machines moved despite having no power, no visible connections, and no personnel present. Security guards reviewing the footage reported feeling a sudden drop in temperature near the camera screens. One guard described the sensation of being watched, as though the figure had become aware of their attention. The lights on the monitors flickered intermittently, and the faint sound of grinding metal could be heard from the speakers, even though the factory itself was silent. The footage clearly showed the spectral worker performing tasks with intent, pausing occasionally as if checking the results of the machinery, and continuing along aisles in a manner consistent with someone familiar with the factory floor. The activity continued over several nights. CCTV cameras recorded the ghostly figure moving between machines, sometimes pausing to inspect machinery before resuming its work. Shadows twisted and stretched across walls in unnatural ways, separate from the figure itself, and objects occasionally fell from shelves without explanation. Investigators noted that the movements were deliberate. The figure did not wander aimlessly, but appeared to perform tasks, as if bound to a routine established long ago. In addition to visual phenomena, security staff reported other disturbing occurrences. Distant screams echoed through empty hallways, though no one else was in the building. Machinery that had been disabled for years would suddenly begin to operate briefly, only to shut down without warning. A sense of unease grew among those monitoring the facility, with some claiming to feel sudden pressure on their shoulders or to hear whispering from unseen corners. The combination of sound, movement, and visual apparitions created a pervasive feeling that the factory itself had become alive with the spirits of its past. Paranormal investigators were called to the site to assess the activity. They deployed electromagnetic field detectors, thermal imaging cameras, and audio recorders throughout the facility. EMF readings spiked around the machinery that the spectral worker appeared to operate, often coinciding with unexplained shadows moving across walls and floors. Thermal cameras occasionally picked up human-shaped figures that vanished when investigators approached, confirming that the entity was capable of interacting with its environment in a tangible way. Audio devices captured low, indistinct murmurs, clanging metal, and the faint sound of machinery running, even though no power was supplied. Investigators theorized that the spectral worker might be a residual haunting, replaying the actions of someone who spent countless hours operating the machines in life. Yet, unlike typical residual hauntings, the figure responded to observation, disappearing when personnel entered certain areas, suggesting a level of awareness beyond a simple recording of past events. The independent movement of shadows and the activation of machinery also indicated an active presence, blending characteristics of both residual and intelligent paranormal phenomena. The factory's reputation quickly grew among local paranormal enthusiasts and urban explorers. Footage of the spectral worker circulated online, sparking discussions about industrial hauntings and spirits tied to workplaces. Some theorized that the factory's intense history, the long hours of labor, and the emotional weight of the past workers could have left a lingering imprint, giving rise to the ghostly operator. Others suggested a more sentient spirit, bound to the machinery itself, compelled to continue the work it had performed in life. Security protocols were adjusted to minimize staff exposure. Guards were instructed to limit their time in the most active areas, and additional cameras were installed to provide comprehensive coverage of the factory floor. Despite these measures, the activity persisted. Boxes moved independently, lights flickered, machinery operated without power, and the spectral worker continued to appear in the footage. The repeated events reinforced the belief that the building was haunted by an intelligent presence, tied to the tools, machines, and routines of its former human occupants. Employees and investigators alike described the experience as unnerving yet fascinating. The combination of a tangible, active entity, inexplicable machinery operation, and sensory disturbances made the factory a unique case in paranormal study. Cold spots lingered near the machines, objects moved without explanation, and the faint echo of screams or whispers left an indelible impression on anyone present. The presence of the spectral worker challenged conventional understanding, blending visual apparitions, physical interactions, and environmental anomalies into a compelling yet terrifying narrative. For those monitoring the Detroit factory, the spectral worker is a constant reminder that even abandoned industrial sites can harbor the echoes of human labor and memory. The translucent figure, moving independently, operating machines without power, and accompanied by disembodied shadows and distant screams, serves as an enduring testament to the presence of the unexplained. Though security personnel and investigators observe from a distance, the factory remains a site where the boundary between the ordinary and the supernatural blurs, and where the past continues to assert itself in eerie and tangible ways. The ghostly workers' nightly activities leave behind evidence of a force that cannot be ignored. Machines start and stop without explanation, shadows twist and move of their own accord, and the spectral figure drifts silently through the factory floor. Those who witness the phenomena are left with an unsettling awareness that the factory, once a place of relentless labor, has become a domain where the unseen persists, performing work long after its human operators have gone. In a residential complex in Chicago, Illinois, a series of unnerving events has left residents shaken and authorities baffled. The building, a mid-rise complex with multiple security cameras covering its corridors and common areas, had been known for its quiet, orderly environmental. The unsettling incidents began in late 2023. The first indication of something amiss came when overnight security cameras recorded a shadowy figure striking a wall in one of the main hallways. The figure was dark and indistinct, without clear human features, but its movements were deliberate and forceful. Each strike left visible marks on the wall, small scratches and scuffs, but when maintenance crews inspected the area later, the marks had mysteriously vanished, leaving no trace of the damage. The security feed captured the figure, retreating into the shadows, as if aware it was being observed, moving silently yet with a presence that seemed to radiate hostility. Following the camera footage, residents began reporting strange occurrences in their apartments. Many described waking up in the middle of the night, feeling sudden pressure on their bodies or sharp, fleeting pains on their arms, consistent with scratches or light impacts. Some noticed small, temporary abrasions on their skin that appeared overnight without any apparent cause. Whispers were also reported, faint voices in the darkness that seemed to speak directly to them, often urging residents to leave the building immediately. The experience was intensely personal, and those affected described an overwhelming sense of being watched or targeted. Security staff reviewed the cameras again and found additional footage showing the shadow repeating the striking behavior in multiple locations throughout the complex. Hallway lights flickered as it moved, and the figure seemed to appear in areas where residents had previously reported disturbances. The shadow's movements were unsettlingly intentional, demonstrating awareness of its surroundings and an apparent desire to create fear. At times, the figure seemed to pause, scanning the hallways as if observing the reactions of anyone nearby. Paranormal investigators were brought in to assess the situation. Using thermal imaging cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recording devices, they monitored the areas where incidents were most frequent. They recorded sudden drops in temperature in the hallways and apartments, often coinciding with sightings or resident reports. EMF spikes appeared near walls that had been struck by the shadow, suggesting a concentrated energy signature. Audio equipment picked up whispers and low murmurs, though no humans were present. Investigators described the energy as aggressive, with an underlying intent that made it unlike residual hauntings they had studied elsewhere. The repeated activity led some experts to suggest the presence might be an intelligent or interactive entity rather than a simple residual energy imprint. its focus on walls, leaving visible marks that later disappeared, indicated a manipulation of the physical environment beyond normal capabilities. The scratches appearing and vanishing suggested a supernatural control over matter, allowing the figure to leave evidence without permanent consequences, perhaps to instill fear rather than inflict lasting harm. Residents described the psychological toll of living under such conditions. Many experienced sleepless nights, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of dread. Children reported nightmares featuring a dark figure, striking walls and whispering warnings, while adults felt an invisible pressure in their apartments at unpredictable times. Some claimed to hear faint footsteps pacing corridors outside their doors, though no one was there. The combination of physical marks, whispers, and unseen attacks created a multi-sensory fear that infiltrated everyday life. In addition to the nightly disturbances, maintenance staff occasionally noticed objects in the hallways, shifted or knocked over, often near the areas where the shadow was captured on camera. Doors that were locked the night before were found slightly ajar, and some residents reported lights flickering when the shadow approached. These incidents reinforced the perception that the entity was not confined to visual appearances alone, but could interact with the environment, heightening the tension for those living in the complex. The Chicago Police Department, after reviewing security footage and resident complaints, confirmed that no intruders or unauthorized individuals had entered the building during the times of the incidents. Combined with the inexplicable physical evidence marks that appeared and disappeared, the phenomenon defied conventional explanation. Security personnel who worked overnight shifts reported feeling uneasy, describing a sensation of being observed, even when alone in monitored areas. Many refused to enter the hallways during the times the shadow was known to appear. Psychologists working with some residents noted that the consistent fear and stress could have psychological effects, but the corroborating camera footage and physical traces indicated a phenomenon extending beyond imagination or stress-induced hallucinations. The combination of visible evidence, sensory experiences, and physical manifestations suggested an active and intelligent presence, one that had chosen to focus its attention on specific areas within the complex. Over time, the wall strike phenomenon became widely discussed among urban paranormal communities. Footage circulated online, showing the shadow's deliberate actions, the wall marks, and the reaction of security systems. Researchers speculated that the entity may be tied to the building itself, perhaps linked to past events or energy left behind by previous residents. Its apparent intelligence and ability to interact with both physical and digital environments made it a unique and terrifying case study. For current residents, the shadow remained an unsettling reality. Despite additional security measures, increased lighting, and patrols, the figure's presence continued to be felt. Scratches, cold drafts, whispers, and fleeting shadowy movements persisted, leaving occupants cautious and uneasy. The wall strike had transformed a simple residential complex into a space where the boundary between the physical world and the unknown blurred, demonstrating the lingering power of a force that could manipulate matter, observe the living, and strike fear into anyone unfortunate enough to encounter it. The Chicago shadow left an indelible mark on both the residents and investigators who experienced it firsthand. Its actions were precise, targeted, and unnervingly intelligent, a ghostly presence capable of instilling terror while remaining elusive. The wall strike remains a modern haunting, captured on camera and remembered by those who felt the chilling presence. A reminder that even everyday spaces can become arenas for the unexplained, where walls themselves seem to harbor secrets and the unseen can strike with impunity. In Los Angeles, California, a luxury hotel became the center of a series of paranormal incidents that baffled both guests and staff. The most notable occurrence took place in 2022 when the hotel's security cameras captured something inexplicable in one of the main hallways. The footage showed a bellhop, dressed in the traditional uniform of the hotel staff, pushing a luggage cart loaded with suitcases. Everything appeared ordinary at first. The bellhop walked down the corridor. The polished floors gleamed under the overhead lighting, and the faint echo of distant music played in the background. Then, mid-step, the bellhop vanished. In an instant, the figure disappeared, without warning or any indication of slowing down. The luggage cart, however, continued moving forward, gliding down the hallway as if still being guided by invisible hands. The wheels rattled softly across the floor before the cart eventually came to a stop against the wall. Security personnel reviewing the footage was stunned. The disappearance was clear, captured on multiple angles, and could not be explained by editing errors, camera glitches, or any ordinary trick of light. Following this initial incident, hotel guests began reporting eerie experiences that coincided with the security footage. Several guests described feeling cold, icy hands on their backs while walking through hallways late at night. The sensation was sudden, as if someone had brushed past them, but when they turned around, the corridors were empty. Others heard faint footsteps above their rooms, the sound of walking that echoed along the ceiling. Even when no one was occupying the floors above, some guests reported the sensation of being watched, particularly when standing near elevators or waiting in quiet hallways. Security teams increased their surveillance after these reports. Cameras in hallways, stairwells, and service corridors recorded other inexplicable events. Lights flickered intermittently as shadows darted across walls and corners. In one clip, a luggage cart appeared to move on its own, rolling slowly along a hall before stopping abruptly. The movement was deliberate, as though guided by an unseen presence, and was strikingly similar to the moment captured with a vanishing bellhop. Paranormal investigators were brought in to assess the situation. They conducted overnight monitoring using thermal cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recorders. Investigators reported sudden temperature drops in hallways where the bellhop had vanished, along with unexplained energy spikes detected on EMF devices. Audio equipment recorded faint whispers and the distant clatter of footsteps, even though investigators were alone on the floors. Thermal cameras occasionally captured transient human-shaped images, flickering and disappearing before they could be closely examined. The activity seemed focused around areas where the bellhop had been first recorded, suggesting that the spirit or entity remained tied to that corridor and its adjacent rooms. Hotel employees recounted personal experiences as well. Night staff reported hearing the soft jingle of the bellhop's uniform buttons and the distinct clatter of luggage rolling in empty hallways. Some claimed to feel a hand lightly touch their shoulder or a sudden cold draft when walking near the main corridor. Staff who attempted to follow these sensations often found the hallways empty, reinforcing the unsettling notion that the bellhop's spirit was capable of interacting with the environment in a tangible yet elusive way. Guests who stayed on the affected floors described vivid dreams in which they encountered the vanishing bellhop. In these dreams, the figure appeared friendly yet distant, moving with purpose and then disappearing, leaving guests with a lingering sense of unease. Some reported waking up to the sound of luggage wheels rolling softly on the floor, though no one else was present. The combination of visual apparitions, physical sensations, and auditory anomalies created a pervasive feeling that the hotel was alive with residual energy. Theories surrounding the vanishing bellhop varied. Some investigators suggested it could be a residual haunting, a replay of the daily routines of a hotel worker who may have died tragically or had unfinished business tied to the building. Others posited the phenomenon was an intelligent haunting, an active spirit capable of interacting with living guests and staff. The bellhop's sudden disappearance, the movement of luggage, and the physical sensations experienced by individuals suggested an entity with awareness and intent. Despite the unsettling activity, the hotel remained open. Management increased security measures, added motion sensors, and enhanced lighting in the hallways, and advised staff to remain alert during overnight shifts. While these measures improved general safety, they did little to reduce the spectral activity. Security footage continued to record unexplained movements, lights flickering, and shadows appearing in hallways without apparent cause. Guests continued to report cold touches, faint footsteps, and the sensation of being watched, particularly on the floors where the bellhop was first seen. The story of the vanishing bellhop spread quickly among paranormal enthusiasts. Online forums and social media posts shared the security footage, documenting the figure disappearing mid-step while luggage rolled onward. Debates flourished about whether the entity was tied to the bellhop's human life, the hotel itself, or an independent force drawn to the corridors. Researchers noted the unusual combination of visual evidence, environmental effects, and personal experiences, making the Los Angeles hotel a significant case for study. To this day, the vanishing bellhop remains a mysterious and unsettling presence in the hotel. Guests and staff who encounter the phenomenon describe a chilling blend of the familiar and the supernatural. A friendly figure performing ordinary tasks, only to vanish unexpectedly, leaving behind cold drafts, moving objects, and a sense that the hotel itself is watching. The building has become a place where the boundary between the living and the spectral is blurred, and where a once human bellhop continues to traverse. Hallways unseen, yet profoundly felt, leaving a lingering impression on all who cross the corridor. The vanishing bellhop stands as a testament to the unexplained forces that can linger in ordinary places, transforming a hotel hallway into a theater of the supernatural. Luggage rolls, unassisted, cold hands brush against shoulders, and footsteps echo in empty rooms, ensuring that the memory of the vanished bellhop persists in the minds of everyone who encounters the strange and chilling occurrences at this Los Angeles landmark. In San Diego, California, a small convenience store became the center of a series of bizarre and unsettling paranormal events that left both employees and investigators perplexed. The most startling incident occurred one night when overnight security footage captured an inexplicable phenomenon involving the store's main cash register. At around 2:30 a.m., the camera recorded the register lifting off the counter as if propelled by an invisible force. It flew across the room, landing with a heavy thud near the back wall. The noise startled the night guard, who immediately reviewed the footage and realized that the event was not only real, but also chilling in its intensity. As the guard studied the tape, he noticed a faint, shadowy figure appearing near the register moments before it lifted. The silhouette was indistinct, but seemed to move with purpose, manipulating the cash register as though counting or handling money. The figure then vanished as abruptly as it appeared, leaving the register toppled on the floor and the room silent except for the hum of the refrigerator units. The guard reported that the shadows in the footage did not resemble any employee or intruder and could not be explained by lighting anomalies or camera glitches. Following the incident, other employees came forward with their own experiences. Several night workers reported hearing whispers echoing through the store after hours. Specifically, the sound of someone counting money. These sounds were described as low, almost urgent, and seemed to come from the direction of the cash register, even when the area was empty. One employee described the feeling of icy air brushing across the back of his neck, as if a presence were observing him. Others reported small object spins, receipt rolls, even boxes of gum disappearing briefly and then reappearing in different locations. Security measures were immediately increased, and additional cameras were installed to capture any further occurrences. Over the next few nights, the store experienced repeated incidents of objects moving on their own. A candy display shifted position entirely across an aisle. A cooler door swung open without cause. And, most disturbingly, the cash register moved slightly on its own during one late-night shift, sliding a few inches along the counter. Employees consistently reported a sensation of being watched, accompanied by the sound of whispering voices counting or handling invisible currency. Paranormal investigators were brought in to examine the store and its unusual activity. Using EMF detectors, thermal cameras, and audio recording equipment, they conducted a series of overnight investigations. They detected sudden spikes in electromagnetic energy near the cash register and behind the counters, areas where employees had consistently reported hearing whispers. Thermal cameras occasionally recorded faint, human-shaped images moving behind the shelves, disappearing before investigators could focus on them. Audio equipment captured fragments of voices, murmuring numbers or indistinct phrases, often increasing in volume when investigators attempted to approach the cash register. One particularly chilling experience occurred when an investigator attempted to touch the register. As his hand neared the surface, a sudden, cold draft swept through the room, knocking over a stack of paper receipts. The EMF detector spiked wildly, and the faint outline of a figure appeared briefly on the thermal camera, hovering above the register before dissipating into the darkness. Investigators noted that the activity seemed focused entirely on the cash register, suggesting the entity, whatever it was, had a specific attachment to that object. Theories about the origin of the phenomenon varied. Some believed it to be a residual haunting, the replay of a previous clerk or owner who had a deep connection to the store and its finances. Others speculated that it could be an intelligent haunting, a spirit actively interacting with the environment to mimic the actions of counting and handling money. Regardless of the explanation, the evidence, video footage, audio recordings, and first-hand accounts was compelling. The register's violent flight across the room, the whispers of counting, and the shadowy figure's repeated appearances painted a clear picture of an active and purposeful presence. Employees admitted to feeling uneasy returning for night shifts, reporting sudden chills and the sensation of someone standing close behind them, even in the empty aisles. One guard recounted waking up the following morning with a deep sense of dread and a lingering smell of coins in the office. Though he had been alone all night, guests and customers who entered during early morning hours sometimes felt a strange tension, a subtle awareness that the store was not entirely empty. Despite increased security measures, the paranormal activity continued intermittently. Cameras captured further instances of objects flying or shifting, shadows appearing and disappearing, and whispers echoing in empty rooms. Investigators concluded that the phenomenon was concentrated around the cash register, but it occasionally extended to surrounding areas, as if the presence was patrolling its domain. The flying cash register in San Diego has become a point of fascination for paranormal enthusiasts. The combination of visual evidence, environmental effects, and personal experiences suggests a complex haunting, one that blends both residual echoes and intelligent interaction. The security footage of the register soaring across the room, guided by an unseen hand, remains a stark reminder of the unexplained forces at work within this ordinary convenience store. The story serves as a testament to the idea that even the most mundane environments, a small retail space, a simple cash register, can become stages for extraordinary, unexplained phenomena. Objects move with purpose, whispers echo from unseen sources, and shadows manipulate the physical world, leaving witnesses with an unforgettable sense that they are not alone. The flying cash register continues to mystify both those who work in the store and paranormal investigators. A lingering enigma in the heart of San Diego, where a ghostly figure counts invisible money and the ordinary rules of reality are suspended. In New York City, a modern apartment building became the center of a terrifying and unexplained event that left residents and security personnel shaken. Late one evening, a resident returning from work experienced an encounter that defied all logic and explanation. Security camera footage captured the moment in chilling detail, showing a dark, shadowy figure suddenly lunging toward the resident in the hallway. The force of the encounter slammed them against a wall with enough intensity to knock the wind out of them, leaving them temporarily paralyzed and struggling to comprehend what had just occurred. The footage quickly drew the attention of building management and security. When security personnel reviewed the cameras, they confirmed that no other individuals were present in the building at the time of the incident. Hallways were empty, entrances locked, and no unusual activity was reported on any other floor. The shadowy figure, however, appeared solid in the video, moving with deliberate intent before disappearing abruptly into a darkened corner. The resident, who had experienced temporary paralysis during the encounter, described the feeling as being trapped in their own body, unable to move while the presence loomed over them. Following the incident, other residents began to share similar, albeit less severe, experiences. Several reported sudden cold drafts in their apartments and hallways, feeling as if someone was watching them from the shadows. Doors creaked or slammed without explanation, and objects in common areas were occasionally found displaced. One resident described hearing a low, guttural growl in an empty stairwell late at night, while another reported seeing fleeting shapes dart across corridors. Though none of these events were as aggressive as the attack captured on CCTV, a pattern of unexplained occurrences quickly emerged. Paranormal investigators were called in to examine the building and its history. They noted that the structure had been constructed on a site with a long, complex past, including old foundations from demolished tenements and reports of past tragedies in the area. Using EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recording equipment, investigators conducted overnight surveillance, hoping to capture evidence of the mysterious presence. During one investigation, the team recorded unusual EMF spikes in several hallways, particularly near the floor where the original attack had occurred. Thermal cameras occasionally revealed indistinct, human-shaped figures that appeared and vanished in seconds. Audio recorders picked up whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, murmuring unintelligible words and occasionally repeating the resident's name. The investigators described the energy as highly focused, almost intelligent, suggesting that the shadow was aware of the resident's movements and was capable of interacting with them. The resident who had been attacked reported lingering effects in the days and weeks that followed. They experienced sudden chills in empty rooms, feelings of weight on their chest while alone, and occasional episodes of temporary paralysis reminiscent of the night of the attack. Sleep became difficult, as the resident often awoke to the sensation of being watched or pressed against by an unseen presence. Even in well-lit areas of the apartment, the feeling of unease persisted, leaving a profound sense that the shadow could manifest at any moment. Security measures in the building were increased in response to these events. Patrols were intensified, and additional surveillance cameras were installed. However, further incidents continued, though none reached the severity of the initial attack. Hallways were sometimes filled with sudden darkness. Lights flickered without explanation, and shadows moved independently of any light source. Residents reported objects in common areas being inexplicably shifted, doors left ajar, and soft, fleeting touches that could not be explained. Investigators concluded that the presence in the building was most likely a form of intelligent haunting, capable of interacting with residents directly and with the environment itself. The initial attack, combined with subsequent reports of cold spots, whispers, and moving objects, painted a consistent picture of a malevolent entity that was not merely residual but actively engaged with the building's occupants. The shadow appeared to focus on certain individuals, particularly those returning alone to their apartments, suggesting an awareness of vulnerability and a disturbing sense of intent. Psychologists and paranormal experts consulted on the case emphasized the psychological toll such experiences can have. The sense of helplessness during an attack, combined with the ongoing, unpredictable manifestations of the entity, created an environment of sustained anxiety and fear for residents. They advise caution, recommending that residents avoid prolonged exposure to empty hallways and maintain contact with security if they noticed unusual activity. Despite attempts to rationalize the occurrences, the CCTV footage remained undeniable evidence of the supernatural. The video showed a dark, humanoid figure launching itself at a residence, the sudden impact causing physical force and a tangible reaction. No human intruder was present, and security logs confirmed all entrances and exits were secured. The footage continues to be studied by both investigators and paranormal enthusiasts. Cited as a rare example of a violent, visible entity caught on camera in an urban residential setting, the attacking shadow in the New York apartment building serves as a stark reminder that even in densely populated, modern environments, the unexplained can still occur. Residents live alongside an invisible presence capable of causing physical harm, instilling fear, and leaving psychological scars. The CCTV footage, eyewitness accounts, and investigative findings combine to tell a story of a malevolent, intelligent force that defies conventional explanation. It remains a chilling case, demonstrating that some shadows are not merely tricks of the light, but entities with the power to reach out, strike, and leave an indelible mark on those unfortunate enough to encounter them. Even months after the initial attack, the presence continues to be felt. Hallways remain tense. Residents report fleeting shadows in peripheral vision. And the knowledge that the entity can manifest unpredictably has left a lasting unease. The building has become a focus of paranormal study, with researchers monitoring it for further activity, yet the mystery remains unresolved. The attacking shadow is an ongoing enigma, a dark force hidden among the bright lights of New York, reminding all who encounter it that not all threats are visible and some fears can follow you into your own home. In a retail store in Chicago, employees and security staff experienced a night of terror that seemed ripped straight from a horror film. It began, innocuously, with the night guard completing his routine patrol through the empty aisles. Cameras monitored the sales floor, but little did anyone know that the recordings would later reveal phenomena defying all explanation. Around midnight, footage showed mannequins beginning to move on their own, shifting positions as if preparing for some sinister choreography. At first, it was subtle, a slight turn of a head or a tilt of an arm, but soon the movements escalated into violent, almost aggressive motions, as if the mannequins were attacking each other. The night guard, unaware of what was unfolding on camera, reported feeling an inexplicable chill as he walked down the main aisle. It seemed to seep into his bones, pressing against him like an invisible hand. Then, without warning, he felt the unmistakable sensation of cold, firm hands gripping his shoulders from behind. He spun around, but the aisle was empty, and no one had entered the store. Shaken, he continued his patrol, but could not shake the sense that he was being watched. When management later reviewed the surveillance footage, they were confronted with a scene far stranger than any ordinary security breach. The mannequins moved with deliberate, almost intelligent intent, colliding with each other and toppling over displays. In the corner of the frame, a shadowy humanoid figure appeared intermittently. It was indistinct and dark, its form blurred at the edges, but it seemed to exert control over the mannequins, pulling invisible strings that caused them to lurch and spin. The figure moved with an unnatural fluidity, appearing and disappearing with no discernible pattern, and seemed to thrive on the chaos it created. Employees recounted feeling uneasy in the store for days leading up to the incident, though they initially dismissed the sensations as nerves or fatigue. Some had reported sudden drafts in the aisles, the soft creak of floorboards with no one present, and whispers that seemed to emanate from empty corners. On the night in question, these disturbances intensified, culminating in the aggressive display captured on camera. The security footage also recorded shadows flickering across the floor and walls, separate from the mannequins, further amplifying the sense that the store was being manipulated by some unseen, malevolent presence. Paranormal investigators were called to examine the site. Intrigued by both the CCTV footage and the reports from the night guard, they noted that the store had been built on land previously used for a factory, with a history dating back several decades. In old records, there were mentions of workplace accidents and sudden deaths, events that some suggested might have left residual energy imprinted on the location. Using electromagnetic field detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recorders, the team spent several nights documenting activity. During their investigation, unusual phenomena persisted. EMF spikes were detected near the areas where the mannequins moved most violently. Thermal cameras occasionally revealed faint humanoid shapes that would vanish as quickly as they appeared. Audio equipment captured whispers and low murmurs, sometimes forming incomplete words or phrases. The investigators noted that the activity seemed highly focused, suggesting a sentient force capable of targeting specific objects and influencing their movement. The night guard who experienced the cold hands reported lasting effects from the encounter. He described a lingering sense of being followed whenever he entered the store, as if the shadow could extend its presence beyond the recorded incident. Sleep became troubled, with dreams filled with mannequins moving and shadowy figures lurking just beyond his vision. He even reported feeling phantom touches during the day, a subtle pressure that reminded him of that fateful night. The store management attempted to normalize the environment, increasing lighting, relocating mannequins, and ensuring security patrols were more frequent. However, the disturbances did not fully subside. Employees continued to report cold spots and fleeting shadows, and some mannequins were occasionally found in positions different from where they had been left, despite the store being locked. The paranormal team concluded that the presence seemed attached not just to the building but to the mannequins themselves, using them as extensions to interact with the physical world. Psychologists and paranormal experts cautioned that the psychological impact on staff could be severe. The combination of physical sensations, visual anomalies, and the knowledge of recorded evidence created an environment of chronic stress. Fear and anxiety became prevalent among employees, and some requested transfers to other locations. Investigators emphasized that intelligent spirits or entities often manifest in ways that draw attention, manipulating objects and interacting with the living to make their presence known. The mannequin movements, the shadowy figure, and the cold touches all fit patterns seen in highly active, focused hauntings. CCTV footage of the incident has since circulated among paranormal researchers and enthusiasts. It shows the mannequins moving violently, the shadowy figure manipulating them, and moments when objects are flung or toppled seemingly by invisible hands. The footage remains a striking example of an intelligent haunting interacting with the environment in real time. Even after the immediate events, the building retains an eerie atmosphere, with cold drafts, faint whispers, and the lingering sensation of being watched. The retail store in Chicago, with its mannequins assaulted by an unseen force, stands as a chilling reminder of the unexplained. The combination of physical interaction, shadow manipulation, and psychological impact demonstrates that some entities can move beyond subtle haunting, influencing objects and people with intent. Staff, management, and investigators alike continue to regard the site with caution, knowing that the shadowy presence may return, waiting silently in the aisles, ready to manipulate its environment once again. The mannequin assault in Chicago is a case study in urban haunting, a convergence of spectral activity and intelligent manifestation. It shows that even familiar, everyday settings, retail stores, aisles filled with mannequins can become arenas for the unknown. The recorded footage, eyewitness testimony, and investigative findings collectively illustrate a force capable of both frightening and affecting the physical world, leaving a lasting imprint on those who encountered it and on the store itself. The story of the mannequins, the shadow, and the night guard remains an unsettling chapter in the annals of modern paranormal occurrences. In a hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, a series of chilling events began to unsettle staff and patients alike. During routine overnight shifts, the security team noticed unusual movements on their cameras, initially dismissed as glitches or shadows caused by flickering lights. However, one night, the footage revealed a sight that would leave even seasoned staff questioning reality. The cameras captured the image of a nurse, uniform crisp and white, pushing a gurney through the empty corridors. At first, her movements seemed ordinary, as if she were performing a late-night round. But a closer review showed something deeply unsettling. The nurse appeared translucent, her edges blurred, and she seemed entirely unaware of the cameras observing her. As the night continued, the gurney she was pushing began to behave strangely. At times, it moved on its own, sliding down hallways without anyone behind it, stopping abruptly outside patient rooms before veering in another direction. Doors along the corridor slammed shut as the gurney passed, the sound echoing throughout the otherwise silent hospital. Security staff watching the monitors reported feeling a chill in the room, as though the cold air from the hospital corridors had extended into the control booth. The phenomenon repeated night after night, with the gurney seemingly guided by an unseen force, moving with intention and sometimes even appearing to pause as if waiting for someone to approach. Hospital employees soon began reporting unusual experiences of their own. Nurses claimed to hear soft whispers, voices asking for help, though no patients or colleagues were present. Doors in empty wings opened and closed on their own, and the faint smell of antiseptic would mingle with an unidentifiable cold, metallic scent. Footsteps echoed in hallways where none should exist, and some staff reported feeling the light brush of a hand on their shoulders. One orderly described turning a corner only to see a fleeting figure vanish before his eyes, the uniform matching the ghostly nurse seen on the footage. Paranormal investigators were brought in to examine the hospital after staff could no longer ignore the disturbances. Using electromagnetic field detectors, thermal imaging cameras, and audio recorders, the team began documenting evidence of the unusual activity. They confirmed that the gurney frequently moved without anyone in physical contact with it, often in patterns, suggesting a deliberate path through the hospital. EMF spikes were detected in corridors where the nurse appeared most often, and thermal cameras occasionally captured a faint, semi-transparent figure moving along the walls. Audio devices recorded whispers and soft cries for help, often overlapping with the movement of the gurney. Investigators speculated that the presence could be that of a nurse from years past, a spirit tied to the hospital through tragedy or unfinished business. Historical records of the building revealed that the hospital had a long history of emergency wards and night shifts during outbreaks, where overworked nurses often worked tirelessly to care for patients. Some of these nurses died on the job or suffered tragic circumstances, leaving behind energy that, according to paranormal experts, could manifest as residual hauntings or intelligent apparitions. The ghostly nurse's focus on the gurney and patient rooms suggested a continued desire to care for those in need, even beyond the grave, though her presence also induced fear in the living. Staff who worked night shifts regularly reported increasing unease. Some described waking in the middle of the night to find themselves in the presence of an unseen observer, while others felt compelled to avoid certain hallways where the gurney appeared most often. The whispers asking for help were particularly disturbing, as they were sometimes audible only to one individual at a time, creating a sense of personal attention and urgency. Many reported feeling a heavy sense of sorrow, as though the nurse herself carried an emotional weight that permeated the air. Hospital administration took steps to ensure staff safety while acknowledging the unexplainable occurrences. Security increased patrols and added more lighting to areas where the gurney frequently moved. Yet these measures had little effect on the phenomenon. The gurney continued its nightly rounds, passing silently through corridors, sometimes appearing to pause in front of certain rooms before resuming its movement. Investigators emphasized that the activity appeared highly intelligent, with the nurse's apparition demonstrating awareness of her surroundings and the people observing her. Audio and video evidence from the hospital has since been shared with paranormal researchers and enthusiasts. The footage shows the gurney gliding across the polished floors, doors swinging open and closed in its path, and the faint, blurred form of a nurse guiding it through the empty halls. In some frames, the nurse pauses to look toward patient rooms, her presence conveying a strange mixture of care and sorrow. Audio recordings capture whispers pleading for assistance, sometimes echoing through multiple wings of the hospital simultaneously. The story of the ghostly nurse in New Orleans remains a source of fascination and fear. It serves as a reminder that certain places, hospitals in particular, where life and death intersect, may retain the echoes of those who once dedicated themselves to helping others. The nurse, seen guiding the gurney and wandering the empty halls, appears to continue her rounds long after her earthly life ended. Staff and visitors are left with the chilling realization that the corridors of the hospital are not entirely empty, and that some spirits linger to carry out their final duties. Their presence, a mixture of care, sorrow, and the unexplained influence of the beyond. Even today, the hospital continues to experience unexplained events, with new security footage capturing fleeting glimpses of the ghostly nurse and her ever-moving gurney. Staff who encounter her report feelings of deep unease, but also a strange respect for her presence, sensing a devotion that transcends life itself. The tale of the ghostly nurse serves as both a chilling haunting and a poignant reminder of the dedication of those who care for the sick, their spirits, sometimes refusing to leave their nightly rounds, continuing in silence and shadow. In an abandoned factory in Detroit, Michigan, Security guards working the overnight shift began reporting unusual activity that initially seemed like routine trespassing or mechanical malfunctions. The sprawling industrial complex, long shuttered and partially decrepit, had earned a reputation among local workers for strange noises and flickering lights, but few had witnessed anything concrete until the night of the incident that would come to be known as the final attack. CCTV footage captured an event so unsettling that even seasoned security personnel struggled to explain it. The cameras showed a shadowy figure moving with unnatural speed through the darkened aisles of the factory floor. Its shape was vaguely humanoid, but blurred, as if reality itself struggled to contain it. Without warning, the figure lunged toward one of the guards patrolling the perimeter. The guard was slammed violently into a wall, the impact echoing through the empty warehouse. Objects from nearby shelves, tools, boxes, metal scraps were sent flying, as if invisible hands were hurling them in the struggle. The force and precision of the attack were chilling. Footage revealed that the shadow seemed aware of its target, moving deliberately to corner the guard. Shelves rattled and machinery groaned under the sudden movement. In one frame, a stack of boxers toppled, narrowly missing the security camera itself. Before the shadow retreated a few steps and struck again, the guard, though physically unharmed, stumbled backward, visibly shaken. His uniform scratched and torn in patterns that mirrored the movement of the shadow on camera. Colleagues arrived minutes later, responding to the alarms triggered during the attack. They found the guard standing in the middle of the factory floor, breathing heavily, with deep red scratches lining his arms and shoulders. No other person was present, and doors leading to the exterior were still locked and secured. Attempts to locate a physical assailant were fruitless. Even the footprints, scuff marks, or fingerprints one would expect from a violent encounter were entirely absent. The only evidence remained in the CCTV footage, the disturbed shelves, and the guard's injuries. As the footage was reviewed, the sheer speed and unnatural movements of the shadow became apparent. It seemed to glide rather than walk, its attacks calculated and forceful, capable of moving objects far heavier than any human could handle alone. Security personnel noted that the figure's behavior suggested awareness beyond that of a normal intruder. It was intelligent, reactive, and perhaps even malevolent. Some suggested that it had been waiting, lurking in the darkness of the abandoned factory, patient for a target to arrive. In the following days, other security staff reported additional strange occurrences. Lights flickered without cause, alarms activated spontaneously, and doors in different sections of the factory opened and closed on their own. Some guards claimed to feel a presence brushing past them, cold fingers trailing along their shoulders, or a sudden sense of being watched while patrolling alone. The facility's eerie atmosphere seemed to intensify after the initial attack, as if the shadow had marked the factory itself as its territory. Paranormal investigators were called in to assess the situation. They examined the CCTV footage, noting the shadow's unusual opacity and fluid movement. Electromagnetic readings around the factory fluctuated unpredictably, spiking dramatically near the sections where the shadow had appeared. Audio equipment captured low, distorted noises that seemed like distant growls or whispers. Although no source could be identified, investigators theorized that the factory could be a locus for residual energy, where the shadow existed as an intelligent entity, perhaps tied to the industrial labor once performed in the building or a violent event long forgotten. Historical records of the factory revealed a history of accidents and violent incidents over decades. Workers had been injured or killed in machinery accidents, and the site had a reputation for industrial hazards. Paranormal experts speculated that the shadow could be an amalgamation of lingering energy from those events, an entity that absorbed the frustration, pain, and rage of the factory's violent past. This hypothesis explained the forceful behavior and apparent hostility toward the living, manifesting in what witnesses described as a final attack. Staff who returned to the factory after the incident reported a heightened sense of unease. Some refused to work alone, citing feelings of dread or the sensation of being stalked. The scratches on the first guard's arms and shoulders healed, but the memory of the encounter left a lasting psychological impact. Security personnel found themselves double-checking doors, reviewing cameras obsessively, and avoiding certain sections of the warehouse entirely. The notion that the shadow could strike again remained a constant concern. The CCTV footage was shared among local authorities, security experts, and paranormal researchers, sparking debates about the nature of the shadow. While skeptics suggested practical explanations, electrical malfunctions, camera artifacts, or pranksters, the consistent injuries, corroborated reports from multiple staff, and repeated disturbances suggested something beyond ordinary explanation. The patterns in the video implied deliberate intent, intelligence, and force that could not easily be explained by natural causes. Over time, the abandoned factory in Detroit gained a reputation as a haunted location. Security shifts became more cautious, with staff avoiding night patrols whenever possible. The legend of the final attack spread, with the footage serving as undeniable evidence of an unseen force capable of violence. Many now approach the building with trepidation, aware that the shadow lurks in the darkness, moving silently among empty machinery, waiting for the next target. Even today, those who enter the factory at night describe an oppressive feeling, a sense of eyes following their every step. Boxes and equipment sometimes shift without contact, lights flicker mysteriously, and distant scratches or scuffs are heard across the floor. The final attack remains an enduring mystery, a terrifying reminder that some abandoned places may house forces beyond human comprehension, where shadows are not just shapes, but entities capable of inflicting harm. The story of Detroit's abandoned factory serves as both a warning and a chilling testament to the unknown, where one night of terror left a permanent mark on those who witnessed the shadow's unrelenting assault. But sometimes, they capture what we cannot see, the lingering shadows, the wrath of the unseen, the moments when the past reaches out to touch the living. These ghost attacks remind us that some forces cannot be contained by walls, doors, or lights. The lens only reveals what is already there, waiting, watching, and sometimes attacking. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey into the haunted corners of America. If you dare, subscribe and follow for more tales where the unseen comes to life. But beware, some things are better left unrecorded.